Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Alrighty, love that countdown. Welcome and good morning. Welcome to the May 28th Planning Board meeting. As far as attendance, we are missing one member as Jonathan Frieden is not here today. He got called to trial this morning, so it'll be the 6 of us. And before we go to the city attorney, I just want to have a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes.
Motion to approve?
Get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Okay, Mr. Kalergis, updates and swearing in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the members of the board. Today's meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted in a hybrid format with the board physically present in the commission chambers and applicants, members of the public, and staff appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. To participate virtually, the public may dial 1-877-853-5257 and enter the webinar ID, which is 861-4342-6327#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 861-4342-6327. Anyone wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon in the Zoom app or dial *9 if you're participating by phone. Next, I'd like to read the city's notice regarding lobbyist registration. If you're appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, you need to register as a lobbyist with the city clerk's office. If you haven't registered yet, you should register before you speak to the board. You don't have to register as a lobbyist if you're speaking only on behalf of yourself and not any other party, or if you're testifying as an expert witness providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized information or testimony in this public meeting, or if you're appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without any compensation or reimbursement for your appearance, to express support of or opposition to any item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the city clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they're communicating. If you're an architect, attorney, or employee representing an applicant or an objector, you must register as a lobbyist. These rules apply whether you're appearing in favor of or against an item, or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or continuance. And lastly, I'd like to swear in any members of staff or the public who will be testifying today. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, the first items are requests for continuances. First one is Planning Board File 15 Washington Avenue for a new hotel.
And the applicant is requesting a continuance till the July 30th meeting, I believe. Is the applicant here to give the request, note the request for continuance?
This is on. Okay, there we go. Good morning, Emily Balter, Burkhardt, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tappanes, offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant respectfully requesting a continuance to the July meeting.
We should next take any public comment on the request for continuance only. Anybody in chambers? And there's nobody online with their hand raised? So can I get a motion to continue this application to the July 30th?
Yeah, can I just make one comment to the applicant? So we got a letter yesterday from the associations suggesting that this should be residential. And I think it'd be wise if you all can come back and talk about the viability of that, because I've heard that it may not be so viable, but I'd like to explore that. So I'm sure you saw the letter. Okay, so that'd be great.
My apologies again. I have not seen a new letter. I saw the letter that was submitted prior to the May hearing. If there's a new correspondence, it has not
I think
made
we
its way
got
to
an
the
email
applicant.
yesterday, didn't we? I did. Yeah. Yeah, check with, I got one yesterday.
But we'll hunt it down, of course,
Okay.
and we'll be prepared to
Just so
speak
you
on that.
understand what the associations believe should be there, and I did some homework, and I heard that that's questionable viability, that there have been developers looking at it, there's no incentive. I don't know if that's true or not, but it may be wise to address that, so. Okay, with that, anyone want to move to continue it?
Motion to approve.
Okay, second? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, see you in July. Thank you so
Yep.
much. Okay, next is Planning Board File 230643, 1212 Lincoln Road, 1628 Alton Road, the Padel Courts.
And again, I believe the applicant's requesting a continuance till the July 30th meeting.
Morning, everybody. Graham Penn, Howardell Fernandez, Larkin Tappan 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. Enjoying these new microphones. It's very interesting not to I've got to train myself not to lean into them, I guess. As you recall from last meeting, we requested a continuance because we're working with our neighbors to the west on various issues related to the building. Due to our clients' unavailability, we really haven't been able to get to the finish line with that. So rather than just ask for another 30 days, we would like to request a movement to the July meeting. And I've cleared that with our neighbors, so that to give us enough time to hopefully resolve all those open issues. So we would ask for that deferral into the July meeting.
Okay, Graham similarly received an email that there's been no cooperation, so just be aware of
Yeah,
that.
look, I can, and I'll apologize for the record. The delay has certainly not been on the neighbor's side, right? It's been difficult. Our client has been out of the country for lots of last month. So getting the attention applied to this issue has been difficult. So we are recommitting to doing it, and that's part of the reason I'm asking for 60 to make sure.
Yeah, I get that. But typically, if they're trying to reach out, at least tell them, we'll get to you. It seemed like they just were ignored, so just want to let you know that that's what we received.
Yeah, and
I don't
again,
know if
I'm
it's true or
gonna,
not, that's what we received.
for the record, I'm going to apologize again
Okay.
because it was poorly handled.
Okay. All right, anyone want to move to continue it?
Before we move to continue it, we just have to open up for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone in chambers to speak on this?
Hi, Darren Spadale, Board President, 1621 Bay Road. I just wanted to pop in, make a brief appearance, and just say thank you for your comments. Obviously, I sent an email on Tuesday to you all. If any of you didn't receive it, please let me know. But I have received the communications Wednesday afternoon that the hope is to continue to work together, and then hopefully by July we can come back to you with something favorable. So we'll keep our fingers crossed it all works out well.
Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand raised.
Okay, anybody else in chambers?
Motion,
No? Okay, someone want to move it?
motion to approve.
Okay, can we get a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. See you in July.
I think we'll see you then.
Okay, and the last is the Mondrian Hotel Planning Board File 160034, 1100 West Avenue.
So I have an update to this agenda item. This will not be heard today. We had sent out a cure letter based upon additional violations. However, that was not sent out within the required 15-day time frame, so that we cannot hear that as a progress report today. However, as a reminder, at the April meeting, the board did set a revocation modification hearing for June 21st, 24, and we will proceed with that revocation modification hearing on that date. And also, as I mentioned at the last hearing, I would let the public know when the special master cases are going to be heard for the appealed violations. There's a special master hearing set for July 3rd at 9 a.m., as well as one on July 18th at 1:30 p.m. So again, the Mondrian Hotel progress report will not be here today, and it will be, we do have the revocation modification hearing scheduled for June 25th.
Okay, thanks, Michael. All right, next is progress reports, Planning Board File 2119, 427 Collins Avenue parking lot.
And this application begins on page 11 of the board packages. So for some background, on April 28th of 2015, the board granted a CUP for the limited use of the parking lot after midnight with operational conditions. Part of those conditions require that public access is not allowed to the parking lot after midnight, between the hours of midnight and 7 a.m., and no meter parking is permitted between midnight and 7 a.m. The parking lot's only allowed to be used between those hours for pre-approved users that have a remote clicker that accesses the parking lot. On May 2nd of this year, the Planning Department sent a cure letter to both the owner and the operator, M&M Parking, regarding 2 violations that were issued regarding the operation of the lot. Both of these violations pertain to not having the lot closed at 12 midnight and having a working parking meter pay station after 12 midnight. We're recommending that the board take comment from the owners, operators, and any public testimony and continue the progress report to the June 25th meeting. That'll turn it over to the participants here.
Orlovsky of the Orlovsky Law Firm, 767 Arthur Godfrey Road, Miami Beach. And with me, I have Andrew Mermelli, the principal of M&M Parking. This is a lot. We actually only have one.
Please release the mic. Please release the mic.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay. We actually only have one open violation from this year. The last violation was dismissed by the special master. The issue that we're having with this lot is that it has an electronic gate, and people keep coming and breaking the gate. And as soon as we receive a complaint, we fix the gate. The complaint from this year was issued on March 18th. We have a receipt that it was fixed literally the next day. So what happens is that the gate closes at midnight. People use it, it's 427 Collins, so people try and cut through, and then they break the gate. With the conditional use permit, we don't sell parking after midnight. The gate's supposed to close automatically, but it's we're in a reactive thing where we have to know that the gate's broken and then we fix it. So this is what keeps happening and happening. We had a violation in 2022, we had one in 2023. They've all been dismissed by the special master. The next one is set for hearing over the summer. I don't have the exact date in front of me. I have Mr. Marmelli here to answer.
But I have a question for
Yeah.
staff. So wait, all the citations that were issued are because you saw cars going in there after midnight? Trying to understand, because
They see the gate open.
If the gate is open, if the gate is
you're
open.
saying it's because the gate was broken?
Can I,
Sure.
every year this happens, it seems like there's another lot directly behind mine, literally where the back gate for this lot is. There's a gate that closes at midnight in the front and the back of this lot. And if someone's inside the lot, the gate in the back opens to just let you out.
Correct.
In case there's an emergency, if there's a resident that's using the lot and someone was giving birth, whatever the case might be. I've gone to the lot, code has called me, I go down there, it's like a ghost town. There's no demand for this lot after midnight. We never thought to open it. The original point of this conditional use, we never got after midnight. We got that they cited the employees of Scott Robbins were using it to clean his office, which is a block away. So they were coming in with a clicker, so now we have the right for them to do that. And that's the only thing we use the lot for.
No, but I'm asking you, when it was open, it's because it was broken?
Absolutely, and we have records of it all. If someone, I believe it's the people from the lot behind us, ironically, they have use after midnight. So because they have storage at the China Grill garage, where they have overflow cars, to save time and cut through, they'll force our gate open. I believe I've seen them do it. I've seen them standing in the back of the lot. Yesterday, I saw the back gate broken for that very reason. People wanted to cut through, they put a rock there.
Do you have a camera there?
I have license plate readers. I'm looking to put surveillance cameras. I'm
Right.
bidding it out right now, because we've had the last 3 years, all in 22, 23, and this year, in March. And it seems like it's the valet guys that are busy using valet cutting through the lot. I've
All
seen
right,
them
but
do-
your testimony that the only reason the gate is open is because it's been broken by somebody?
Correct. In fact, I've seen one guy doing it. I
Okay.
called the cops on them. I went to the hotel next door. Nobody really seemed to want to solve this crime. They laughed at me kind of.
Okay, anything else before questions?
No.
All right, before Matthew, anyone here in the chambers to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand raised.
Okay, Matthew?
Hi, good morning. Can you help me out here? This is the corner of 4th Street and Collins Avenue, correct?
Not exactly. On the corner of 4th Street and Collins is 441 Collins.
Okay.
And across from that, the City National Bank, which is also a parking lot that happens to have after midnight. It's across the street from the City National Bank, and to the east of it, on
Okay.
Ocean Drive, there's another parking lot that is literally when you go out the back gate. So the people wanting to cut through from Collins, the valet guys who park cars in Washington, on the corner of 4th and Washington, wanting to cut through, I believe, are the ones doing this, forcing the gate open, and then we have to fix it. We've done it each year, once.
Okay, so you're this little tiny single aisle lot off of Collins Avenue?
Yes, and we have no desire, we never tried to open after midnight. We have a gate that closes at both the front and the back of our lot at 11 PM. Just to be safe, we shut it at 11 each night.
So in terms of the violations, are these initiated by residents or are these self-initiated by code compliance, or does anyone?
Code enforcement has failed to convict us, as far as I can tell. I was told by my attorney that they say that we have 2 convictions in 18 and 19.
No, but he's
and I-
asking, is it just code driving by and
Code-
seeing the gate
yeah,
open, or
code
is a
sees the
resident?
gate
Yeah, I
open
would
and-
think it's code just sort of driving by.
In fact,
I mean,
they've
is
called-
that reflected in the violation?
It's not, but we have Manny Villar here from Code Compliance if he has some more information on this item.
And the violation is that the gate's open. It's not that there's noise going on or parties in there or whatever?
Correct.
Okay, all right. It's just the genesis of, is it just a driver driving by, seeing the gate open and let's use the citation, or the genesis of the complaint?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's both. We have received complaints on this lot in the past, and our officers also proactively inspect parking lots as well. But we have received complaints in the past for noise, things like us in the police department for noise and things of that nature in the parking lot late into the evening on occasions.
Yeah. Anything recent?
Not this particular one, I'd have to look, but I can tell you that the violation, this violation, code violation ZV 2024-05211 was issued on March 15th of 2024. Usually during the spring break period and other high impact periods like Memorial is when we receive complaints on this lot, when there's high demand and a lot of people visiting the beach and South Beach specifically. For this particular violation, our officers did follow-up inspections on April 11th, 2024, and noticed the gate open at 12:05 a.m. April 12th, 2024, noticed the gate open at 12:09 a.m. April 13th, 2024, the gate was open at 12:20 a.m. April 14th and May 23rd, April 14th, when we inspected this past weekend, we noted that the gate was closed at 12:16 a.m.
Okay, so those are drive-bys by code.
These are drive-by follow-up inspections and proactive inspections, yes.
I could respond to the ones in April. There was a part that we had to order, and it took about a week or 2 for the part to come in. Someone like literally wedged something in there and destroyed the motor. It was going and going until it burned out. So I could show that we.
All right, well,
replaced
again,
the
you're
motor.
under oath, and your testimony is every time it's been open, it's because it's been broken.
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
set on a timer to close
right.
at 11 p.m.
All right. I'm not sure what you do about that. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's your fault, but yet it's technically a violation.
As
but-
soon as it happens, we repair it as soon
Yeah,
as possible.
no, I get it. If that's what's happening, then I.
And they have the receipts
Feel bad for you.
substantiating
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Mr.
get it.
Chair, may I ask, have you considered a different type of gate?
We've improved the gate. We paid for a much more expensive gate.
And why is the parking meter pay station working at all?
If someone comes in there that's already parked, you're allowed you're not allowed to come in or out after midnight. Let's say a person paid and they wanted to extend, they could do that. And let's say you happen to buy 12 hours and decided you want to stay for 4 more days. It rarely happens. We've noted in our 2 special master hearings, there's been no time that they've come and checked that there's ever been a transaction. But it's just in the odd event, because you shouldn't be able to, if the gate's closed, you can't use the meter anyway. But if you've parked there and you wanted to extend and pay, what's the harm in that?
And so you have, but you just said, what's the harm in that? But you're not supposed to have access after midnight.
After midnight, that means you cannot come in or out. But
Right.
if you're already
But-
parked and you want to walk in and pay for the
So
parking for
they're
a
already
few
in
more
there.
days,
Correct.
let's say you
They're already
decided,
in. Okay.
but it's never happened. It's just, if the gate's locked, you should not be able to use the meter. And no one did we demonstrated in our special master hearing on every one of these violations that no one did use the meter. There's an electronic thing that we brought records and showed it and won both times recently.
Okay.
Do you have any reason to doubt that the gate is open because it's broken?
No, I don't have any reason to doubt it, but the gate is broken quite frequently.
Right.
That is an issue, an ongoing issue that's been going on for the past couple of years. And we've been going back and forth with this, and we contact Mr. Mermelli, and he does have it repaired eventually, but
Right, but
It
I guess
happens
the
quite
key is that
frequently.
when all these drive-bys, code sees it open, and they're simply giving a citation because it's open, that's one thing. But if they're giving citations because there's like noise in there, you're saying a majority of all of April, March, those were just the fact it was open,
For this
right?
particular violation, but I
Yeah.
believe the case that was issued last year, that he mentioned was dismissed as special magistrate. There was evidence of people in the lot and.
But that's
we have
rare.
copies.
I'm trying to understand.
It is rare.
Primarily
It
just
is-
because it's open?
It is rare because
Okay.
this is a very small parking lot also. I
Okay.
believe it's only, he can say better, but probably less than 20 spaces. It's a very small parking lot. It's only,
It's about 20 spaces.
yeah, a very small parking lot.
22.
Any other questions or?
Well, what are our options here, Michael or Nick?
I'm right, we have this till midnight.
Sorry, what was that?
I mean, you heard what the issue.
Yeah, so
what-
I think we're recommending that the board continue the progress report either to June or July, just to monitor.
Okay.
We're not recommending a revocation or modification hearing. We just want to have this in front of the board for the board's attention.
Okay.
Can I point out something? I think it's important that this lot, like many lots on Miami Beach, if we didn't go for a conditional use, we would have the right to use it till midnight. But that's all we're using it for. So the conditional use is actually harming us. I've been to the board, I've been to special.
Why did
it's
you
all
seek,
about a
why did
violation
you
of-
seek a CUP then?
It's for Scott Robbins to be able to have his cleaning staff. That's what we were originally cited for, a cleaning staff member using a clicker to come into a private lot.
That's why
And
you
that's
needed
all
a
we use it
CUP?
for still.
Right.
And yet I'm coming here and we're not using it after midnight, we're not attempting to.
Tell
That's
Scott
the-
to pay your legal
That's the
fees.
whole point. But that's the whole point of going for a conditional use is to, as a parking lot guy, is to use it after midnight. We're not attempting to use it after midnight. It seems like it's punitive on the applicant, on me, to continue to have to monitor a conditional use, that our goal is to have a gate that's working. And if we didn't have a conditional use, we'd still have a right to use it till midnight only.
Right.
That's the irony here.
All right, hold on, Scott, go ahead.
You may have answered my question, but is it used at all after midnight?
Only by the cleaning
Only by the
staff
cleaning staff.
for SRC, which is a block away.
And do you believe they're the ones that are maybe pushing the gate open, breaking it?
Not at
They're
all, no, they have a clicker to get in.
So I guess the maybe a solution I have is maybe you can talk with them or maybe your people can do it. Because you said one reason the motor or whatever keeps breaking, people push the gate open, they run into it or
The
things
valet
like that.
guys it's obvious when they're doing it, they have no regard. I've seen them doing it one time, I walked
And
into
that's while they're using the lot,
They're just
while
cutting through our lot to save time, instead of having to
but
walk
not
around.
after midnight or before?
Most of the time before. I
Okay.
actually saw that going on yesterday, and I repaired it during the day. It never got to after midnight. I could say for the amount of times they've come, the amount of times we fix it is very frequent. We fix it probably 4 times the amount of times, but we get to it
No,
extremely
I understand. I was
quickly.
just thinking, because if the problem was after midnight, perhaps you can have
Only when we
somebody
have a
chain it so it
serious-
can't be used, period, after midnight, and would prevent any, but if it's
It's 2
different.
weeks in the month of March each year. The rest of the year, not a problem. We've had 3 violations in March of '22, '23, and now in '24.
What about security? Have you gotten security during that month at all, ever?
We're not even open after midnight. We just have a gate that
But
closes.
I mean, if you're having those problems during March, seems like maybe that,
It's economically not feasible. The cost of security is like $25 an hour. You would just stick them there at night for the month of March. This parking lot has like 10 spaces. It would basically, that cost would be what it makes in a year, I think.
thank you.
Melissa?
I was just going to say, it's too bad that we don't have a system with code compliance when we have an issue like this, that there's not like an initial warning and to give them the benefit of the doubt of doing the repairs within the next couple days or so, because it just, the amount of money spent on legal fees, your time, and of us dealing with something that, is there no, just like if your headlights burnt out, there's no like addressing the issue of getting them a warning to them and them responding within the next 2 days of some sort of repair system in place?
Well, technically, since it is a violation of the CUP, I'm not going to say we're forced, but we're compelled to kind of follow this route. But we do work with him, and we advise him of the issue. As he mentioned, the past 2 or 3 years, we've issued violations, and he's corrected them, and we've worked it out. But when you have that CUP in place,
You guys have to follow by those rules. Well, it's good to hear that you guys are actually communicating first before making an
I've
issue,
run out
but,
there after midnight, I've seen it. They've called me
Right.
on my cell and I've picked up and I've gone down there.
well, I think it's pretty straightforward that it's not ill-intended in leaving this gate open. But for your own benefit, you might want to get some cameras so you can start charging your neighbor for the damage they're doing.
Fine, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like you should just be a little bit
I've
more.
ordered them already. I've
More
asked them to pick up.
proactive in maintenance and keeping the gate in good
Full
repair, instead of
surveillance
relying
of
on
the
code
entrance and
compliance to tell you, that's all.
We're going to have full surveillance by soon.
All right, so I have a question. In light of what you all have heard, is there any inclination to dismiss it, or do you want to bring them back in July? In light of what you've heard?
I would make a motion to dismiss.
I'll second that.
Especially considering
Yeah,
the feedback from code and the fact that there are no residents who have voiced any type of.
I'm glad you're getting
Displeasure.
some cameras, which is sort of security.
All right, so we have a motion and a
Thank you.
second. Can we do a roll call?
So that would be a motion to suspend progress reports at this time. Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Cement,
Yes.
Ms. Latore, Latone, sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Goltenoff,
Just one question, though. If there were a future violation, it could return to
yeah,
this
we would
board.
issue a new clear letter and
Okay.
Right.
bring back
Then,
with it.
yes.
Mr. Needleman
Yes.
and Mr. Elias.
Yes.
The motion passes six
All
to
right.
zero.
You know, you're in a unique situation, so we're not going to make you come back, but, you know, obviously, if there's any way you can try to monitor that
I am.
damage better.
I'm going to put
Okay.
in the surveillance
I get,
cameras.
listen, I've known you a
Sorry
long
for your
time.
attorney, though.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you. All right, next is Planning Board File 160075, revocation modification hearing for the good time.
So the next item is PB 16-0075, the continuation of the revocation modification hearing for the Good Time Hotel. This was last heard by the board on April 25th of this year, where the board did modify the CUP. We did pass around an updated staff report compared to the one that was published. And the reason for this update was that, as you may remember, last month, there was an issue with the last violation that was issued in March. There was some conflicting information in the code compliance report. It indicated that the violation occurred at 1 o'clock in the morning. It actually occurred at 7:10 PM. So we updated the staff report to reflect the actual time of violation and modify the report accordingly. And to clarify, as of yesterday, there have been no new violations on this property since the last violation that was issued on March 24th of 2024 for the referenced case at 7:10 PM. Now, we did note that after further review of our, of the CUP, we noticed there were a couple conditions that were conflicting based upon some previous modifications that had been made. And I don't think the applicant would object to these modifications, which would be conditions 10.VII and 10.XIII regarding the speaker system and sound. There was a condition 10.VII that said that the system shall prevent sound from being audible from nearby residential buildings. That was reflective of an earlier CUP that had the requirement. Since then, the board had modified the conditions and instituted the requirement that the sound not be unreasonably loud. So we believe that that condition should, that portion of the condition that said, and prevent sound from being audible from nearby residential buildings should be stricken. And condition 10.XII, the part of that condition that says, the sound from any outdoor areas is not audible anywhere west of Washington Avenue. And that portion of the report should be stricken based upon updates to the CUP. We are recommending, though, as part of this continuation of the revocation modification hearing, that we go back to staff's recommendation from the April meeting and recommending that noise from the outdoor sound system not be plainly audible at a distance of 100 feet or more from the subject property's west property line. Now, we did update and include in the updated staff report the conditions that the board modified to the CUP on April 25th. You'll find that at the end of the updated report that was sent out today. Notably, the board had recommended that entertainment level music only be allowed 2 weekends per month. And it also would reduce the time for the entertainment, reduce the time from the prior approval, which was 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The board reduced that to 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., and that would be for 2 weekends a month. That we all recommend the board modify the CUP to include the language I referenced earlier, that sound not be plainly audible at a distance of 100 feet from from the property, and also to modify the two conditions that I referenced previously, conditions, just a second, 10.VII and 10.XIII. That'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Sorry, just before they start, quick question, Michael. So if they didn't have any violations from last time to this time, and I don't know if there will be feedback or not, why the request to revert back to the original staff recommendation?
Because we still believe that the condition that says not be unreasonably loud is subjective and hard to enforce.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff. Mickey Marrera, once again here on behalf of the Good Time Hotel. With me today is my partner, Matt Amster, and Tomas Medding, the general manager of the Good Time. So just to catch up on a couple things. So as Michael said, there have been no violations since going back all the way to that March incident. Not only have there been no violations, we've been checking rigorously. There have been no complaints filed in the system. So there, as we talked last month, there have been some operational changes. Tomas will maybe address some of those shortly, but thankfully we're in a position now where we feel things are working in the right manner, and everything seems to be operating smoothly, and we're happy to report that. As to what Mr. Cement pointed out, we were also surprised to see that there was a discussion in the staff report about reverting back, especially since there have been things have been working well. There have not been, not only, again, no violations, but no complaints, which I think is important. I want to just put on the record, and one of the requirements from the last meeting was that we have our sound engineer go to the site and confirm and do a test confirming that the speakers are operating at the intended mechanics. That has occurred. A report will be submitted to the city soon for the city's peer reviewer to review, but that report was, that test was done, so we complied with that request as well. I'm going to have Tomas come up here in a few minutes, but what I'd like to ask is, there was confusion between us and staff, and we had multiple discussions, as they're aware. What we interpreted the motion that was made at the April meeting to mean was, it was sort of a compromise. There was this pulling back and forth between unreasonably loud and plainly audible, and a compromise was proposed, and that compromise was you would have, at your option, at our option, 2 weekends, and it would only be Saturday and Sunday, not Fridays, 2 weekends a month, where you would operate at unreasonably loud. Still, and again, they've done that, and there haven't been problems this month. And then the other 2 or 3, depending on how many days there are in that month, the remaining weekends, you would remain at what staff recommended. That's what the motion said, which we interpreted to mean plainly audible. That's what we expected to see. What came back was the unreasonably loud for 2 weekends, that's clear, but then the remaining weekends, it says ambient. And in our understanding, and I think the general understanding, ambient is based on the source, meaning if it's ambient, I might not be able to hear it on the other side of the room, because ambient means conversation can carry on uninterrupted, even with the music in the background. Plainly audible still protects, anybody outside the building. So for purposes of those experiencing the noise outside of the pool deck, there's no difference. The difference is if somebody was to come up to the pool deck and say, you're supposed to be ambient, that's almost like very, very light sound. It really, no pool party can succeed on ambient noise. So we wanted really not a change. We just see it as a clarification of that motion. We believe, and our whole team believes and understands that was unreasonably loud for 2 weekends, which could give us a little bit of wiggle room, and then plainly audible the balance of the weekends. We wanted, if possible, for you all to discuss that, to clarify what was intended, so that us and staff can be on the same page. Again, from the point of view of the folks outside of the pool deck, I don't think they'll hear a difference. Plainly audible at 100 feet is a pretty tough standard for those balance of those weekends. But it matters what happens on the pool deck, and it's an operational issue that we want to just clear up today. And again, we're very, very happy to report that, and again, just going back a little bit, there was a couple violations back in November, nothing up until that one incident in March, which we've addressed, and there have been no complaints since. So thankfully, we feel like we're here in a good posture. If Mr. Meddy can come up for a few minutes, I know he wanted to speak to, how he's managing the situation at the pool deck, and then obviously, hopefully you all can discuss that clarification.
And Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to do it now, I can do it now. If not, I can do it after the presentation. But we'd like to respond about what exactly what action the board took last month, because we've gone over the tape and we discussed with Mickey Marrero, and Michael and I have spoken internally, and we think the board's motion is accurately reflected in this order. You had an extensive discussion about whether to change the noise standard from unreasonably loud, which is the standard in the noise ordinance, to plainly audible, which is a stricter standard. And ultimately, the board decided to keep the unreasonably loud standard. On the issue of entertainment, which is a question of use more than noise, the consensus was to allow entertainment level music, including DJs, up to 2 weekends a month, and that on other weekends that the entertainment was allowable, but at an ambient volume level, which means at a level that does not interfere with normal conversation. Now, this hearing has been noticed as a modification and revocation hearing, so you can make changes.
Right, you're just
today,
reminding us
but I
what
just want to remind you what you did last month.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, Thomas Meeting, Good Time Hotel, and just really going back to what Mickey just had mentioned.
Well, I'm sorry, what's your role there? Are you the?
I'm the general manager.
Okay, thank you.
So I've been, since coming on board in late January, we have worked with this team, the staff, the DJs, anybody that's supporting up the partners, to really ensure that the community is being heard, and we're really doing our best to mitigate any potential noise penetration, west of Washington Avenue, where the issues most likely have stemmed from. The team, I'm on property most of the weekends, if not, definitely Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday as well, just to really working with the team in its entirety, security, the servers, everybody else, to really ensure there's a very, very clear understanding on what it means to have a good vibe, a good party, but then also being cognizant of our neighbors and the community as a whole. So we have done that, and I think we've been quite successful. With all of this being said, will we ever be perfect? Hopefully at one point in time. But, just really want to give the board the assurance that we continue to work with everybody, listening to the community. I'm in touch with Mark Antoine, who's one of the HOA presidents across the street. We continue having the dialogue. I would like to go back to the community and start having dialogue with some other individuals as well, who unfortunately have fell silent, and I completely understand why. But really rest assured that we continue to operate the way we have over the past few months, really mitigating any potential noise penetration west of Washington Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tomas. And just want to remind you all again, we passed out to the proposed clarifications that we're seeking. Again, just I guess a difference of opinion, but we thought it was pretty clear from the motion that plainly audible was the standard. Again, because plainly audible and unreasonably loud are the same language. They're two different ways that the noise ordinances in all the municipalities are characterized. Entertainment, ambient, that's a different discussion on use. So we're asking the board to clarify what the intent of that motion was. I think we have it right. Matt and I have talked about it ad nauseum. But again, we're here in a positive light today without any issues, and hope that we stay the course with you all, and the ship has been righted. Here to answer any questions, and there may be some folks on Zoom. Matt, Tomas, and I are here, and with that, we'll stop. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Why do you say that unreasonably loud and plainly audible are the same when they're clearly not?
No, they're not the same. They're the same language, meaning when you look at all these noise ordinances, the standards are unreasonably loud at certain hours, plainly audible. So they're two types of standards, but they're noise ordinance standards. Ambient entertainment is a different discussion. It's a use-based discussion on the source of the noise. So to have them be 2 weekends you're this and the others are you're that, they're not the same language.
Sure.
They mean different things. They're different standards for sure. But we thought the board's intent, and again, I'm asking you all, we thought the board's intent was unreasonably loud for 2 weekends, plainly audible. The balance, that's what seemed to make the most sense. and that certainly clarifies the ability to operate. And again, I'll reiterate, from the point of view of the resident or a neighbor, they're not going to hear a difference. Plainly audible is very strong. So the only difference is the balance of those weekends. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, before I have questions, let's go to the public hearing. Is there anyone in chambers to speak on this? Okay, I assume there are people on Zoom.
And there's nobody with their hand raised on Zoom.
None?
Nobody.
Wow. Good job, guys. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Questions?
If I could just say something first, I think
Sure.
the board may remember, well, the board did discuss clearly modifying the hours of entertainment. That was very, and reducing those hours of entertainment. And so our modified CEP that the board modified included a reduction in hours, and we talked about having entertainment 2 weekends a month. And that is exactly reflective of what we have in the modified CEP. What the applicant is suggesting is that they can have music, entertainment level music, every weekend a month. And they're suggesting that as long as it's not plainly audible off the property, then that would not be a violation. And we're saying what the board did say is that entertainment level music was only allowed 2 weekends a month within that 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. timeframe.
Well, I think if I remember well, the issue that the residents are having are with the events. Is that not correct? I don't think that we had necessarily a violations or complaints about the rest of the time. I think it was directly linked to these weekend events that you guys were having, that the residents were complaining. Is that correct?
Yeah, there haven't been any violations at any other time. It's been mostly.
It was always
mostly
when there was
Saturdays in
entertainment.
that peak period, yes.
Okay, so the other part of the time was not an issue. So I think we continue in a direction that we decided on last month. I think we you guys are on probation, obviously, and we keep going with that direction. If there hasn't been any, any changes since we had the meeting last time and the decisions we made with last time.
But how, sorry, anyone, so I guess, have you been operating under which standard? I could say that when I made the motion, and which might have not been clear, my intention was that it was, plainly audible, because I thought that the ambient would essentially get them back here every month, right? Every month, if you set the standard ambient, they're back here because anyone could hear anything, and then, there's a violation. So my intention was that the standard was plainly audible, but how have you guys been operating over the past month?
So, just confirm with the GM, and I'll be honest, just so that hopefully this doesn't result in a violation, but we didn't understand it. So we advised the code in advance that the 2 weekends that we would be doing unreasonably loud would be Memorial Day, this past weekend, and the weekend just prior, the whatever it was, 18th, 17th. We advised them in advance so they would know that that was the standard. Again, I don't think anybody noticed a difference. The other weekends, we did operate as we had been operating, plainly audible, and it created no issues and no complaints. We just, operating ambient, no entertainment, basically, shut down the pool deck, because no, it's just not a worthwhile, I don't want to say the word vibe, pool, it's just, the Good Time Hotel's whole operations plan is based on the activity of that pool deck. Now, the scope of that activity, the sound of that activity has been discussed ad nauseum here. I think we have it in a good place, but if we can't operate at least at plainly audible, you could literally be going to the bathroom in the pool deck of our own pool deck and not hear the music. And just no one's gonna go to that. I mean, let's just be honest. It's just not, if we're really forced to operate a pool event at ambient, it's like you're at a Courtyard Marriott pool deck, which I stay at those all the time. They're wonderful, but they're not really the vibe that we're seeking to create.
Okay, but
So
beyond you guys, a plainly audible is not an issue with the neighbors so far.
It hasn't been for this past 2 months, and I think unreasonably loud gives them they can sort of up the events a little bit, so there's a little whimper of noise, but it works. The compromise that you all came up with works. We just think it was meant to be plainly audible, and the motion maker clarified that's what he meant as well. We're not asking for a change. We're asking to clarify what you voted on, which we thought to us was pretty clear.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'm inclined to go with what staff has recommended, to clarify everything and keep what we have previously decided as a board, which is the 2 weekends a month, modified hours, and I don't think that it's just the the events that have been issues. I know that in some instances there have been issues with events, but that's not been my experience. I don't think that I think that, you know, when I just left Las Vegas, and just as an experiment, I decided to pull out my little dB decibel level meter on my phone. 75 to 80 is around plainly audible and conversational level. And y'all have requested and have been turned down to 93. That's concert level. And I'm inclined to go with what staff has recommended and keep and move forward from there.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah,
Hold
I
on,
too-
let them pay attention. Okay.
wouldn't want to change what we had a long discussion last month. And I'm not willing to change that right now. But just a question for staff, and this is kind of go the opposite of my thinking on this, but I understand what the applicant wants, but would staff be amenable to, if they agreed to basically something in the CUP that says noise from the Good Time Hotel cannot be plainly audible across Washington Avenue at any time?
That's what we are recommending.
That's what you're recommending, but I mean, if you do that, then, and they agree to it, are you amenable to allowing the applicant to do what they want, which is maybe 3 weekends a year or something, to have more? I understand, you want to have the, maybe I misunderstood you.
I think you, maybe.
Okay,
Do you want me to clarify?
Go ahead,
Sure.
please.
What the vote was a sort of a compromise vote, which we thought was a good compromise, in that unreasonably loud gives us a little bit more flexibility. Again, even on the unreasonably loud weekend, which were the last 2 weekends, 0 complaints. But it gave the operation a little bit more flexibility. Maybe you hire the DJ that's just a little bit more exciting those days, still managing the volume, still managing control, still not creating problems for the residents. On the 2 or 3 weekends that we're proposing to be plainly audible, again, you're managing it the same way. It's really a minimal difference, but it can make a big impact operationally. So plainly audible is the standard that they're proposing all the time. We think that should be the balanced weekends, not the 2. I think that's what was intended. That's what we understood.
So it's just those weekends that it's
Slightly less intense.
not
Yeah.
unreasonably loud.
And
Or
unreasonably
not
loud,
what the
again, it's
standard
just for those
is.
few
Okay.
hours, and it's now been
Then I won't.
constricted the
I
hours.
don't want to, I'm not going to go where I was going to go before.
Okay.
then. Okay.
Melissa? Matthew?
It's been about a month, and I'm a little hesitant to do anything that could perceivably loosen what took us years, this board years, to get this under control. And also, as we know, many of our residential neighborhoods are somewhat seasonal. So there may be less people who are also living right now full-time in those residential units across Washington Avenue. I'd be more inclined to go with staff's recommendation on plainly audible, but I'm a little more hesitant, again, to do anything that could perceivably loosen this and open us back up to the same situation. I think we need to see more time as to how this works out.
And we're not asking to, I appreciate that, we're not asking for it to be loosened. We're just asking for clarification of what was already voted on. And it's been really 2 months since there's been a violation at the plainly audible. But again, leave it to you all. We certainly don't think it should be further restricted based on good performance.
Right, and for the last 2 months, when there's been no complaints, and I'm really shocked there's no one speaking on this, so that's a good sign. That's how you've been operating?
Yeah, plainly audible. Well, unreasonably loud was up until that April meeting, which was a month ago. So we had it unreasonably loud, but unreasonably loud, if managed well.
Right.
I just hit the mic. If managed well, which we've now gotten right, certainly seems that way,
Right.
can function fine. Plainly audible is a little more restrictive, but it's still working fine. So that's why we wanted that clarified. Again, there's really no discernible difference. outside
Listen, the
pool deck.
perfect solution is that you're able to have your pool parties, you're able to, be successful without disrupting the public. I mean, that's at the end of the day, and I know that's not an easy thing to achieve. But, that's the goal here, and I hope you understand that's all of our goals. We want you to survive, we want you to do well, we want you to succeed, and we want the neighbors not to complain, which, again, the fact that there's no one speaking is a great sign, so.
And quite honestly, on those weekends where it's not, the standard is not unreasonably loud or excessive, if you do turn up the music a little bit more, and it's not heard from across the street, it's not bothering anybody, I don't think anybody's gonna call code compliance. I don't think you're gonna have a problem. So, it's something that I think I'm not inclined to change right now, but I'm basically saying that, yeah, you're gonna go up a little bit in noise. And again, as long as that's not disturbing neighbors, which according to you it won't, you're not going to have a problem. I mean, unless code proactively goes to the roof deck or the pool deck and checks it out, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're there too often. They don't want to go anymore. So I think it's what we did last month is good. I think we should keep it, and you'll do what you're going to do there, and hopefully not cause any more problems for the surrounding neighborhood.
Can I add a comment? If you look on page 8 of our staff report, in the updated report that I sent to you, you'll see that the noise ordinance has a definition of what's unreasonably loud. That's only defined after 11 p.m. There's no definition of how to assess that, between the hours of 11 p.m. or before 11 p.m. in terms of what's unreasonably loud. So the code says that between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., if the music or the noise is heard at a distance that's plainly audible 100 feet from the building, then that is it meets the definition of unreasonably loud. There's nothing that defines that beforehand, and that's
Why is that?
It's not that there's nothing that defines it. The noise ordinance has a list of examples of noise that would violate the unreasonably loud standard. What the code provides, and this is consistent with the Miami-Dade County noise ordinance, is that after 11 o'clock, if noise is plainly audible from a distance of 100 feet, that alone there's a presumption that the noise ordinance has been violated. That on its own is a prima facie case of a violation of the noise ordinance. So what staff is recommending is extending the plainly audible sort of presumption to all hours. And I think this is consistent with a condition that was in the original approval for the good time.
Yeah, the original approval had stricter conditions regarding noise not being audible from the residential units at any time, the nearby residential units.
Mickey, I'm just curious, did you have outreach with the neighbors this past couple months or month?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm in touch with Mark Antoine. Actually going to meet with the owner of the Palace just to get some additional feedback on how successful they have been, just to learn from them. Unfortunately, Kristen Jager, Charles Fisher have been silent, and they might be away. I'm not certain, but continue to reach out.
Yeah, okay. I mean, part of me, it's funny, people moved to South Beach, they didn't move to Palm Beach, they didn't move to Coral Gables, so I'm sure that they expect some noise, but again, as long as it's not disruptive to where they don't call in and complain, so I'm really thrilled that the last month has gone the way it is. So, we don't need to beat a dead horse. It sounds like the inclination of the board is to go with the staff report, and you guys do what you're doing, and if it goes like it did the last couple of months, then you should be good to go.
And just want to clarify, when you say go with the staff report, that doesn't mean their recommendation to further restrict it, just keeping what you voted on last month, right?
I believe that's,
It means plainly audible.
I'm in favor for what we voted for last month, and at the end of the day, it's for you guys we have to react to not only code compliance, but also the public opinions of the neighbors around. And I think at this point, it doesn't really matter the language. You guys screw up and we get a lot of complaints from the neighbors, even though there's no code violation. You guys are setting yourselves up for disaster on the next hearing, right? So at the end of the day, I mean, I'm ready to give you guys the more, what we decided on last time, knowing very well where you guys stand at this point, and you can't mess up, because it's not even a code violation issue at this point. It's the whole neighborhood we have to react to.
As a reminder, they are going to be submitting a new sound study that's going to be peer reviewed by our peer reviewer, and we're going to give you the updated study as well as results from our peer reviewer at the July meeting. So there's still an opportunity for the board to further modify the CUP based upon the results of that sound
Right,
study.
so that we're all on the same page, can you re-articulate what we
It sounds
vote?
it sounds like the board is comfortable with keeping the CUP as modified based upon how staff has interpreted what the board said at the meeting in April. And those conditions are outlined in the modified CUP at the end of the staff report, not with our further recommended changes. If that's the case, then the board should clarify that or confirm that. And then we have the sound study to be presented to staff, peer-reviewed, and the revocation modification hearing continued to the July 30th meeting.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion to move this forward and to, help me with the language here, but based on our recommendations from last month, keep it as such and dismiss the recommendations, changes that you put forward.
Okay, can we get
And
a second?
continue the
continue
modification revocation hearing for,
To July, right? Right.
yeah.
To July.
To July.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call. Yes, you'll, Mr. Cement seconded it.
Sure.
Tough day today.
So, Mr. Elias,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Cement,
Yes.
Ms. Latone,
No.
Mr. Goltenoff?
Just a clarification again, when the motion was to dismiss the staff's recommendation, what exactly does that mean?
We're not going to further add in that music shall not be plainly audible 100 feet from the property line. That's something that the board, if they decide after looking at the sound study
Yeah.
and the peer
We can
review, could
change.
further modify, there's still a chance to further modify at the July hearing.
So we're basically just continuing this.
Right.
Well,
Hearing.
but agreeing to the concerns we had last meeting that we verbalized that have been incorporated.
And does
You
this
guys want-
result in a modification?
No, it
No.
You just
confirms.
want to
Okay.
keep it, you just want to keep
Okay.
it. You
So-
guys just want to keep it the way that we did it last time and just leave it alone?
Y-
And
yes,
then
that's
continue it
what-
again? Okay.
For now.
So I,
So
I
this
I'm going
won't-
to change my vote.
so I'm a yes for this then, if I want to keep what we've already agreed upon. Thank you.
And just for clarification, I'll change my vote.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Needleman.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes 6-0. And this is continued to the July 30th meeting.
We'll see you in July. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for your work this month, seriously. I thought we were going to have 30 people on Zoom. Okay, previously continued code amendments. Item number 7, Planning Board File 230644, Residential Use Incentives Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Are 7 and 8 companion, or they're separate?
These are companions, so we're going to
Okay.
take them both together.
Okay, so the second one is item 8, Planning Board File 230637, Residential Use Incentives Land Development Regulations.
Let me just get to my notes here. And this report starts on page 77 of the board packages. So although this text is very comprehensive, I'm going to try to summarize it as briefly and concisely as I can. So these ordinances require a 6-step review process because they include an increase in FAR. So the first step is a planning board review. That happened by the board in March. The second is a public workshop. That happened earlier this month. We're in step 3 right now, which is the planning board review and transmittal to the city commission with a recommendation. The next step is the initial review by the city commission. The 5th step is another public workshop. And the 6th step is the final adoption by the city commission. Now, if you look on page 90 of the board packages, this highlights the areas that are subject of the attached ordinance regarding the RM1, RM2, RM3 areas, and RPS 4 areas in Mid Beach and South Beach. This ordinance allows generally a height increase as by incentive, which is between approximately 15 to 20 feet additional height, and FAR increases of approximately 15 to 25%, depending on the zoning, RM1, RM2, or RM3. But generally, that's the intent, is to incentivize properties that agree to abandon any existing transient uses, such as short-term rentals or hotels, and forego any such transient uses, forever in the future. Now, in the RM1 district, as noted along West Avenue and highlighted on page 90 of the board packages, this would only apply to existing properties that already have approval for a suite hotel or bed and breakfast, as those uses are no longer allowed in this zoning district. So if there's a property in the RM1 district that's already a conforming residential apartment, they couldn't take advantage of this ordinance to get increase in height and increase FAR, because they would not be able to come in and get a transient use right now. So we've highlighted the areas within the RM1 district that currently have a transient use. So this ordinance would only apply to those properties in the RM1 district. Now, we did have a workshop on May 8th via Zoom. It was well attended. We had 8 or 9 participants with questions and comments. I provided an update of those comments on page 89 of the board packages. And so we're recommending that the board transmit both the comprehensive plan amendments as well as the land development regulation amendments to the city commission with a favorable recommendation. And this will likely come to the city commission at their July hearing. We also did provide in the staff report, if you wanted to take a look at it further for reference for anybody watching online, there's a link to the YouTube presentation, and that's noted on page 13 of the staff report.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone in chambers to speak on this item? Anyone on Zoom?
There's one person on Zoom with their hand raised, Mr. Mitch Novick.
Mitch? Mitch?
Good morning.
Mitch, were you sworn in?
No, I wasn't, but I swear and affirm to tell the truth, the whole.
We're gonna let Nick swear you in.
This is a legislative item, so you do not need to be sworn in.
Oh, my apologies.
Thank you, Mitch. You have 2 minutes.
Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Thank you, Nick. Mitch Novick, I have always had a problem with the regard to height and FAR increases being decided by those we elect. I feel those are one of those things that should go to the voters, similar to the vacation or vacating of alleys, right-of-ways, and air rights over alleys. That's it. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mitch. Anyone else?
There's nobody else with their hand raised, and if I can just provide just some further clarification. So height has always been something that the commission could have amended in the past, in the future, with an ordinance easily regarding increases in height. What's different now is based upon recent state legislation. Previously, any increase in FAR did require the voters to approve that increase. With recent state legislation, it preempts the city from doing that. So now the city commission has the ability to, on their own, increase FAR. And as part of that review process, they did require this pretty strict, much more intensive review process compared to a normal ordinance or comprehensive plan amendment.
I have one question, and this would be for Nick. Nick, and I did read, maybe you can explain it a little bit better, but what kind of guarantees are there that, say, somebody takes advantage of this and builds bigger and taller, 5 years go by, 10 years go by, and they decide they want to start to do short-term rentals?
There's a covenant. They have to sign a covenant, restrictive covenant,
And
to run to the land, yes.
Okay, I guess, it's a legal question, which I'm not up
Yeah.
on. So that goes with the land, and they would never be able to do that.
Right. So we could enforce it as a as a code violation, but we could also, sorry, I don't know why that's happening. We could also sue to enforce the covenant if it came to that point.
Okay.
I just gotta, I mean, I'm super happy to see that I'm moving towards, discouraging on the transit use in those areas and putting some sort of incentive, but is this enough? Like, do we have any sort of, research or that shows that this will actually be enough incentive to get the sort of results that we were hoping for? Like, will it actually make a difference? And
I think it's maybe a matter of trial and error and instituting something and seeing if there's a response. If there's no response, the city commission could amend further. I did speak to somebody who does have a transit use, and they believe that it could offer enough incentive for them to modify their use.
And then when I was, okay, so, and when I was watching the call that you had on Zoom, you mentioned about the possibility of downsizing heights in the whole call.
Yeah, so
What is that
we have
about?
an ordinance that's actually before you on the agenda next month. It was deferred from the prior month, which is to lower the heights for certain districts, including RM3, from 200 feet to 150 feet. So we'd have to resolve any sort of conflicting heights in that regard.
I guess, though, this will take more time, there's a lot more steps to
Right,
go through. So
the-
this will
this-
apply probably after the decision of downsizing the heights.
Right, so we're going to have more information based upon the board's recommendation at the June meeting. The soonest this is going to go to the city commission is going to be July for the first reading. The public workshop won't happen until September. So likely this will not be for final adoption of the city commission until October or November. So that's, at that point, we would, before then, reconcile any conflicts with the height.
Okay. So the lowering of the height, is that east or west of Collins?
That'd be east. That's sort of to balance the Live Local Act, which says that you can take the highest height within a certain radius.
Right.
So that's the reason for, lowering the height.
Okay.
And you'll get that information, and actually, the staff report is available online from the April meeting, if you want to take a look at that before the next meeting. But it's largely going to be pretty much what was indicated in our report for April, when you see it back before you in June.
Is the conversion of the short-term rentals or other transient uses, such as hotels, is that for current or proposed or both?
So in the RM1, it's only properties that currently have that transit use. For RM2 and RM3, where those areas do allow that current already, it would be prospective. So if a property right now is all apartments, they could submit the covenant and agree to, forego any sort of short-term rental or hotel uses in the future, transit uses, and take advantage of the incentives.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, so Michael, you mentioned that you had a project that you've heard about. What was the kind of the driving force behind this? Are there particular projects that, that have been contemplated?
I think the driving force here was really the city commission being concerned with these transient uses and the city's ability to control them. Because right now we're preempted by the state from restricting short-term rentals in areas where they were not further restricted prior to 2011. So the only way to sort of reduce or minimize these uses is to offer incentives.
And then the other question I have is, in the staff report, it discussed the public meeting that was held, or public community meeting that was held, and there was mention of potential impact perhaps to historic or contributing structures. And looking at the map here, a lot of this is along the coastline in areas that were impacted by recent state preemptions as well. So is there any concerns about that additional height or FAR could incentivize something that we don't want to happen?
It doesn't affect the Historic Preservation Board review of projects. It doesn't affect the rooftop additions, the maximum number of rooftop additions that are allowed currently in the code. So it doesn't affect that whatsoever.
But in these districts, like for example, the RPS 4 and then RM3, those the demolition of these buildings is no longer under the purview of the Historic Preservation Board, correct?
Well, I think it depends on the particular circumstances surrounding the property and their elevation.
Okay, that's my big
Well,
concern
this is
with
not,
this.
this is not intended to encourage demolition or modify our current Historic Preservation Board ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
I think I understand what you're getting at, which is, does this create an incentive to demolish a building in a historic district? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I mean, it's more FAR and it's more height than could potentially be permitted today with these buildings.
And I think, Michael, the way this was drafted is in order to be eligible, if the property is located within a historic district, then the owner shall be required to obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the HPB. So I think that, you know, to take advantage of these incentives, you'd have to consent to the HPB's jurisdiction, meaning I don't think you could travel under the recent state preemption, although there could be a risk that somebody would travel under the state preemption and then file for this, right? So.
Where is North Beach on here? Or is this only Mid Beach and South Beach?
This is only Mid Beach and South Beach.
Why does this not include North Beach as well? Because that's a real issue.
This is the area that was recommended by the City Commission.
I think it should be citywide.
Yeah, I mean, there's, some people
We-
asked for expansion of
We
the
can
areas,
make
but
that
was-
as a separate recommendation.
Yeah, just to echo what many people here said, I would really love to see this expanded and increased somehow. I think probably the biggest issue right now that Miami Beach is facing is having attainably priced housing for people to live and stay on the beach. I know the city went a long way towards kind of gearing up for office incentives, which it seems like it's been successful and people have built and utilized. I wish we could figure out some way to try and, I don't want to say curtail that, but maybe redirect those office incentives to say, hey, what works for the residential development community to try and build things where people can finally live on the beach. So I don't know how we do that, but I don't know, Michael, maybe you have
I can tell you.
recommendations for that.
I don't know, this is just sort of I've sort of been looking into some things with Tallahassee. But one of them was, I had a conversation with Ways and Means a couple weeks ago. There are some tax things that we can do that are not necessarily, we have to collect taxes, but we can rebate them. So that's something that can be looked into that I'm not real sure that anybody is actually.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but.
But
you know,
that,
like
but that
even-
can be done.
Even, you know, for the new hotel that we were looking into, and it seems like the development community came back and said, hey, even though the city would love to put residential there right now based on what we can build, it
Right.
makes no sense.
Right.
So,
So, but they can be done. They're just, there are even special zoning districts in different places, but that's a whole separate argument, so, or discussion.
yeah, I would just love to see what we can do with the planning department, to say, hey, how can we push this forward, right? And that's furthering residential incentives, maybe curtailing office, just to see how we can kind of redirect the city.
I mean, I think based upon direction I've seen from the City Commission and Land Use and Sustainability Committee meeting, I think there is a concerted effort to increase residential uses, you know, within the city. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more ordinances come to the planning board that have incentives to further increase residential uses.
Yeah, I just hope that they think bigger, right? Because like the feedback that we got on the new hotel that, you know, we were going to hear today was, at most, maybe, you know, the residential development community could have put 30 units there, right? A 30-unit development, when you factor in costs and whatnot, that's not really moving the needle for how they can solve the problems that, in my opinion, the city has.
Well, I do agree. I think, you know, based upon past amendments to the city code, there are areas where clearly the code is modified to incentivize hotels and offices. So we do have in place, and I think it's also going to be coming before you, modification of those requirements or modification of those incentives to walk that back.
Got it, so to walk that back and then ideally further the residential goals, right?
Like you saw last month, we had the repeal of the co-living incentives.
Mhm.
So that was a start.
Okay, all right.
Someone want to move it?
And I'd just like to respond, just to follow up on Matthew's question is I think, just I want to clarify what I said, which is if a property owner wanted to use any of these incentives, they would have to file an application with the HPB. If the property were located in historic, they would have to file an application to the HPB.
Before they are availed of these incentives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll move it with the,
All right, we're starting with the first one, right?
right.
Okay, with a favorable recommendation, and then we can make a separate
Yep.
motion that okay.
I'll second that.
And that's for both the comp plan and the LDR?
Can we do both?
You can do both in one
Okay,
motion.
great, yeah.
I'll second both.
All in favor?
Aye. Any opposed?
Any
Okay,
opposed?
none. And then I think you want to make a separate motion.
I'd like to make a motion that it be applied citywide, especially to North Beach. I think that we have a real problem with short-term rentals, especially a lot of the new buildings that are coming up that are micro units that are extremely, it's problematic for the whole city, especially where we are. So I'd like to kind of take the temperature and see where we are with that.
And I'd support that, but do we also need to expand that motion to include ideally prodding the commission and committees to kind of think about how to further residential incentives and
Right.
curtail?
Yeah, we can include that, to
Office
include
and hotel.
It
further
would be a
residential
combination of a
incentives.
recommendation.
So if you
And
want
I
to do
do
that,
think-
I'll second.
Great, thank you.
And I do think you're also going to see an amendment to increase the hotel room size. So I think that you're going to see that direction to reduce the
think they're
incentives
listening.
for hotel. And we also have the elimination of the additional FAR for the hotel bonus in certain CD2 districts. So there is that direction.
Okay.
All in favor of that?
All in favor of that motion and recommendation?
I just have one question before. My concern is the increase in height perhaps might incentivize these higher ceilings, which then get into those like Class A type residential, larger units again, which isn't really, it's knocking out one of the issues, which is transient use, but then it's not necessarily addressing the lack of, more attainable housing in this city. I'm supportive of this, and I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I think there could be some disconnect. Now, of course, understanding that these two ordinances are waterfront, right? So it's never going to be that more attainable housing, but ceiling heights play a really, really important role in determining, the actual value of these units in addition to floor area.
That's a great point. I guess it could be tied to unit count, right? The goal could be to increase the residential unit count in the city versus, something that's a little bit more broad, such as the FAR.
Yeah, so just, I don't have specific, language to add to this motion, but I think we need and we're not necessarily endorsing this particular, carbon copy of these two ordinances citywide, but it needs to look at holistically. That's what we should be asking the commission, floor area, height, and other items as well.
Understood. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think
Okay.
Melissa had a question.
Yeah, just a quick question, because in the summary, you do make a reference to this not increasing the maximum allowable.
Yes, so this
resident-
does not increase density.
Right, so
It does not increase the number of units.
So linked to his point is that we're not trying to change the number necessarily of, in the density of the.
We already, like if somebody's doing a workforce housing development, there already is a density bonus that's
Mhm.
allowed of 80%.
Okay.
All right, so that's a recommendation. Okay, great. All right, we're on to new applications, Planning Board File 240659, 1905 Collins Avenue. I guess it's a modification of a prior CUP.
It's 1905 Collins.
Oh, it's just change of owner operator?
Yes. This
Okay,
application
sir.
is requesting modification to a previously conditional use permit for a neighborhood impact establishment. Specifically, the applicant is requesting a change of the owner operator, and staff is recommending approval with conditions.
And you'll note that this initial CUP was granted by the board back on December 19th of 2000. There have been several changes over the years.
Longest-standing club in America.
And I was a participant.
It was, at one time, it was a larger venue. It was eventually split. It was modified to expand an area. This applicant here is before you just for a change of owner-operator. Now, since the CUP is quite old, it did require them to come to the planning board. Over the past couple of years, the board has modified the conditions of approval, so when there is a change of owner-operator, that's something that can be done with an affidavit at staff level. So we're all recommending as part of this modification, that language also be modified so that when an owner-operator changes in the future, they don't have to come back before the planning board. They can do that with the submission of an affidavit and handled by city staff.
Right, but why did it come to us to begin with? Is it just
Based
to
upon
make
the
sure
con-
that?
It says, the conditions of the CUP are very strict. It says any change of operator has to come back to the
Right,
board.
but they adopt the CUP that's in place,
Yes,
correct?
they basically,
Okay.
they agreed that they're not, if they
Right.
were asking for modifications of
No,
the
I get
conditions,
that.
they'd have to come before the
So
board.
if you eliminate the need for us and it can just be done by affidavit, the affidavit just says, here are the new owners?
And you agree to abide by the conditions of the CUP,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, which they really have to do anyway, but.
Right, right.
Okay.
Have there been any issues?
No, no.
Okay.
If
Thank
there had been, and then that's also a good point where, you know, outside of this affidavit, if there are issues with complaints or violations, like you've seen previously, we do a cure letter and bring them to the board.
And is there any basis that staff could reject a new owner? Really can't, right? So
Not
it's-
really, as
So
long
the
as-
affidavit is just saying, here's who it is, and we agree to abide by the new CUP?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Essentially.
I didn't know if you did a background check on their history.
No, we don't-
Okay.
we don't do all
All right. Sir?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, honorable board members, staff, attorney James Rao with Green Swim Water, office at 600 Brickell Avenue, here with my colleague Adrian Noto, and our client's representative, Johan Pfeiffer. We are here on behalf of our client Lee Paz Schwartz, who is acquiring this venue, is under contract to purchase it. And we're here for, as indicated by the staff, the basic change of owner operator, change out the LLC. The venue's fully licensed and permitted as a restaurant and bar lounge with a good operating record. This application is a little sentimental for me because it's the first application I worked on almost 20 years ago with my mentor, Harold Rosen. So I've been with it for a long time.
You've made it.
Applicant will not exceed the currently approved seating and occupancy. It's a very small space, a little over 1,500 square feet. And
Who's the current owner? Is it still prior to this new owner? Who is the owner?
owner's name is, the principal is Michael Koenig.
Okay, so it had been sold before. What's the guy that originated it? I'm spacing out, but anyway, okay.
A long time ago. That was back when I was working on it, a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Okay.
And so we're here requesting your approval. And we're excited to change ownership and keep on improving the venue.
Okay. Anyone here to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom, and then just an update, you're going to see for the space next door is going to be before you next month, also for a change of operator.
That's the
Change
little
your name.
restaurant next door?
That's the Mint.
No, we're the little restaurant.
Oh, you're the restaurant? Oh, not Mint. Oh, got it. Okay.
Mint is the
That's
larger
why I was,
space.
I'm sorry, I thought you were,
Yeah, Mint's the larger space.
I thought this was Mint.
Got it. Same confusion.
This is the little
Well,
place.
no,
next
because
door.
the staff report mentions Rock Bar. and
It was,
Big
yeah, it
Lots,
was
so-
originally combined.
I see.
Is it
Got
same type of music and things like that, or are we changing that type of thing as well?
I'm not sure, is it? any type of music?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
He's gonna
Johan, why
repeat
don't you
it.
stand up?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, explain
Yeah.
that. Yes.
So it will not be the same kind of music. It will be more like disco, funk, like very old school. So
Oh,
we change
good,
it.
okay.
All right, someone want to move it?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who made the
Michelle
motion?
moved to approve it, Melissa second.
All in favor?
Aye. All
Any
opposed?
opposed?
Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Miami Beach.
Congratulations on your new chambers. Looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next is a lot split, Planning Board File 240657, 1405, 1415, and 1425 Marseille Drive.
This application is requesting modifications to a previously approved land lot split to divide the existing site comprised of 3 platted lots into 3 individual buildable parcels. Staff is recommending approval with conditions, and this is on page 121 of your package.
So just an update here. The board may remember, or some of you will remember, back on October 26th of 2021, the planning board did approve the lot split here, which was to divide the lot, which was 3 platted lots, into 3 separate buildable parcels. Now, at that time, the code had a penalty if you were demolishing a pre-42 home. There was a pre-42 home in the center of the property. The code said if you're demolishing a pre-42 home, you're penalized in terms of lot coverage to 25% and unit size of 40%. So when the board approved the lot split, those were the standard conditions that were put in place. The applicant then proceeded with 3 applications to the DRB, had 3 new homes approved. Since that time, state legislation was adopted that prevents the city from treating a pre-42 home differently from other homes. And when our resiliency code was updated a year ago, we removed that penalty for when a home is demolished. There's no longer that penalty. However, we still do an analysis of the area and the unit sizes and lot coverage. And based upon that, we are recommending that the unit size be limited to 45% based upon the standard average unit size of around 30% for the area. We're not opposed to a lot coverage of 30%. We are recommending the unit size be limited to 45%. The applicant is requesting a modification to allow them to go up to 50% unit size. I'll turn it over to the applicant for his presentation.
Good morning, Nicholas Rodriguez from Burkow, Riddell, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapanez, offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here representing Bettina Equities LLC and their principal, Maria Cayola. I'm joined by our architect, Chris Fernandez, and of course, my colleague, Mickey Marrero. We have our digital presentation. I see it here. There we go. So as Michael explained, this was a previously approved lot split. The original triple lot was around 24,000 square feet. We divided it, give or take, into roughly 8,000 square foot lots. So the lot split is done, and the owner actually has kind of suffered a lot with this property. They not only got 3 homes approved by the DRB, they went into building permit. We're in the process of getting the homes approved. Chris was working on trying to get them approved, fit all of the mechanical equipment, fit everything within the 40% and 40% unit size and 25% lot coverage footprint. It wasn't one singular issue, but ultimately, after several meetings with Michael, the owner made the call to try to return to the planning board because it just, the homes that were being proposed in that building permit application was not good quality product. It was not going to be sellable. They weren't going to be good homes for her to live in. It just wasn't working. The limitations on unit size and lot coverage were just constricting and tying the architect's hands behind his back. Actually, throughout that time, she considered selling the property, and she did engage with 4 separate buyers, and every single one of those 4 buyers walked away the moment that they saw the planning board order that limited the unit size to 40%. She could not sell it. So here we go. The owner has made the difficult decision to basically start over, come back to the planning board, get 3 brand new homes, and we feel that these new homes are a big step up in design, but we are requesting that we be treated just like any other vacant lot in the neighborhood, and in any other vacant lot would be entitled to the 50% unit size that's permitted by the code and not be penalized at 40% or at 45% based on surrounding homes that are frankly much older and likely to be redeveloped in the near future. Did I lose a slide here? There we go. So just to give some context of where this property is, we're in North Beach. We've seen a couple similar applications recently. You see in the background, you see Bay Drive along the bay. You all may remember the 1120 Bay Drive application. We had a similar conversation, and you all approved 50% based on the fairness of one lot, one lot that's not subject to a lot split approval being entitled to 50%, while a lot that is subject to a lot split but follows the original platted lot lines and is not inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood is hit with a penalty. And then more recently, at the very last planning board meeting, you see South Shore Drive in the foreground. You all approved of a unit size of 50% at 900 South Shore Drive. Now, all applications are evaluated on their own merit, so there's not really a precedent, but it is worthwhile to point out that there's a fairness issue here, right? You have one single platted lot, and it should be developed just like any other single platted lot would be in the same neighborhood, and the effect that putting a unit size restriction and a lot coverage restriction has on the property, it's really a chilling effect on being able to sell the property in perpetuity. It's a chilling effect on and difficulty for designers to be able to design high quality homes and high quality product. And in our conversations with the neighbors in this neighborhood, they expressed to us a desire to see larger, nicer homes. They feel that some of these other streets in North Beach have been subject to redevelopment, to new nice homes, while their street, you'll see on the area analysis, there's only one home been built in the last 50 years on Marseille Drive. So they're starving for new development in this neighborhood, and they're happy with our conversations with them, they have been supportive of our request for 50% unit size. So just as Michael mentioned, we're requesting to go up to a 50% unit size, modify the previous condition of the order, and 30% lot coverage. Staff doesn't have an objection to 30% lot coverage, but they are trying to knock us to 45% unit size, which again, to us, it's just a fairness issue as to how we're being treated with respect to other lots, and also just an ability for the architect to take that 400 or 500 square foot difference and be able to use it for mechanical equipment or for certain things like resiliency improvements, whereas you'll see shortly, the proposed new homes each have understories, which is something that will have to get approved at the design review board, but it's a resilient element that elevates the home, and it does take that 300 or 400 square foot basically is all put into that understory. So this is the properties that staff analyzed with respect to the area analysis. It's a very unique neighborhood in that Marseille Drive is a short street, buttressed by two RM1. So you're literally driving down the street in a single family neighborhood, and then suddenly there's apartment buildings. So it's a little bit of a unique neighborhood in that respect. And as I pointed out earlier, the area analysis, you see that the only home on the street that's been constructed in the last 50 years is a home in 2011, and it was at 48% unit size. You just don't see new home construction at 45% or below any time in the last 20, 30 years. We are requesting slightly above the average, but I think if you see the age of some of these homes and the size of some of these homes, you can deduce that they will be redeveloped in the near future, and when they are redeveloped, they're going to be at 50% or close to it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
You're saying by virtue of the fact that they don't need a lot split, they're entitled to 50%?
Yes, anybody who has a vacant lot is entitled to, or an existing lot can go to 50.
All right.
So I'll give it to Chris to walk you through the proposed new home designs and how we're mitigating impacts without reducing our unit size.
All right, and before I forget, does anyone have a disclosure to make about a communication? Anybody? No? Okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, Board. My name is Chris Fernandez with COZ Design, residing at 4051 Northeast 27th Terrace, Lighthouse Point. We are asking not to exceed as Nicholas has mentioned, but to kind of align with what the surrounding properties are allowed to do as of right. In the previous design, I wasn't a part of it, but I joined in afterwards. It was, the 40% unit size was inadequate with mechanical equipment. It led to very small rooms. It was just unappealing product that we had very difficult time selling. The new design with this, which has an additional 10% in unit size, actually feels smaller in massing and results in a higher quality product, which I'll run through it. The design philosophies on this is, resiliency, sustainability, aging in place, and neighborhood massing sensitivity. In regards to the sustainability and rising sea levels, our design proposes Elevating the buildings move allows us to, tuck the parking underneath, increasing the permeability of the site and account for the future rising of the roads. At our current site, the street is projected, or it's to be raised in the future, about up to 2 feet. And we want to design something that kind of is future-proof, for these homes. In contrast to the previous design, our proposal will have a more compact and greener footprint, with the understory. Aging in place, given the elevated nature of the homes, we aim to ensure that they're adaptable for all residents. By incorporating elevators in each home, we facilitate ease of movement, accessibility. This inclusion accounts for approximately 680 square feet. So most of this area that we're requesting is actually being tucked under the building. So when you look at these massings, with a house on the ground, your garage is kind of outside of it. Well, now that we've elevated, we can tuck it under the house. We actually have a lot more green space. In regards to massing, we really took consideration to the properties next to us. If you see the property on the far left, lot 9, it's set back even further than what's required in the front. We have a portion that's about 44 feet, that's first and second story. And in the rear yard also, it sets further back. So it kind of lines right behind the actual 1433 resident. You'll also notice that the buildings set back on the sides further than what's required of 8 foot 6 inch, and it's what we're proposing is 11 feet on lot 9, and about 9 or 10 feet on lot 11. We took a lot of consideration in the massing of it. And in addition, we're planning on really landscaping this, so that when you're walking down the street with these buildings set further back, everything kind of like compacted, we kind of conceal these buildings. In conclusion, our proposed design modification aims to enhance sustainability, resilience, and their livability while being sensitive to the existing neighborhood. Thank you.
So we have, Chris didn't quite get to it, but we have these massing studies. This is the proposed homes, and this is the massing study of the previously approved homes at 40%. And what I found interesting about these is when you look at the massing of the 40% unit size home, I apologize if I'm out of time. I'll take 10 more seconds and I'll be done, I promise. It's an interesting new noise for the alarm.
Way more alarming.
I didn't recognize it at first. I'm like, what is there a car in here? So what I was saying is the new homes, as Chris was saying, actually appear smaller in massing than the proposed homes that were approved at 40% unit size. And that's, as Chris said, we're tightening up the homes, and the new square footage is actually a lot of it going within or underneath the home. And I want to point out we did meet with our neighbor to the left, Olivier. They may be here today to speak. We are open to continuing to meeting with them to make any design improvements. We've been meeting with the neighborhood. They were a vocal part of the first lot split approval. We had a meeting at the site. It was a little bit contentious at first, but things have come around. And like I said, they've expressed to our owner to our client that they are supportive of this. And I think that they are happy to see this project finally moving forward, as opposed to being stuck in kind of purgatory, where it has been in large part due to this 40% unit size. So with that, we respectfully request approval of our modifications. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone in chamber speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand raised?
Okay, close the public hearing. Any questions?
Yeah, Mike, I guess what they said, I just confirm it, that if this was just a vacant lot, let's say one lot, there's no historic home demolished, would they be able to build up to 50% of the lot size?
That's correct.
Okay. One thing I did notice on your renderings, and I was going to ask if you would talk to the neighbors. Yeah, from the perspective you showed, the second set, the revised one showing 50% do look a little bit better, but from a street view, I'm guessing they're going to look a lot taller because you're pushing everything together. So the question was, how much outreach did you do to the neighbors, and did you show them maybe elevation, street level elevations, and were they okay with those?
So Chris actually met with Olivier so they can speak more to it. I know he sent an email that I was copied on, said these designs are a big step up from the previous ones. Chris, I think one of the things, the understory will make the home taller, but we're not going to the max, right? Yeah, right.
That is correct. We're about 2 feet or so shorter than what the max allows. When we met with the neighbor to the left, he liked the idea that these buildings are being pushed back. These second stories are about 40 feet back plus, even in the rear, and the amount of landscaping that we're providing in the front, we're hoping that the intention, it looks like a forest with these little glimpses of the houses beyond.
And one of the other factors is with an understory, you're required a 70% open space. It's a heightened open space requirement in your front and your rear yard. So it's more open space by providing a slightly taller home on the lot.
And we should note too that just because it's a lot split, so regardless of the type of home, it does require DRB review and approval. However, they're also asking for an understory, so the height is also reviewed by the DRB. And typically for an RS4 lot, the DRB will allow a height of 24 feet point from your first habitable floor to your rooftop. So the understory level is flexible, and the DRB reviews that. So it can't be excessive. Typically, the DRB will allow an understory of around 9 feet for an RS4 lot, and then 24 feet on top of that for the first and second floor.
Have you been to the DRB yet for the second?
No, we have to get approved here so we know our unit size and then we can apply. But we'll definitely be coordinating with Olivier, our neighbor to the left, Lot 8.
For Michael and your team, you recommended 45% unit size, not the 50% that they've asked for, and it's, of course, it's greater than the 40% currently allowed. Can you talk more about how you landed there?
Sure. So if you look at page 122 of the board packages, that includes the lot split criteria. And criteria number 3 says whether the scale of any proposed new construction is compatible with the as-built character of the surrounding area, not the future character, or creates adverse impacts on the surrounding area, and if so, how the adverse impacts will be mitigated. To determine whether the criterion is satisfied, the applicant shall submit a massing and scale studies reflecting structures and uses that will be permitted under the land development regulations as a result of the proposed lot split, even if the applicant presently has no specific plans for construction. So we believe, based upon a review and analysis of the surrounding area, which has an average unit size of 30%, we believe a 45% is a reasonable.
What was permitted back when those homes were built?
We didn't have, when those homes were originally constructed, we didn't have lot coverage, unit size limitations. It was a factor of setbacks and height, and people were just not
All
building.
right, but you would agree that at some point, if these homes are redeveloped, which they likely will, they'll all get 50%. Right.
Likely when a new home is developed, we're seeing them come in and going to 50%.
Right, so don't you find it punitive?
No, I mean, right now, if they wanted to do a larger home, they could keep the lot as is, not split it, and they could do a larger home on the lot. So we don't think it's punitive, and it is a criteria that's listed in the lot split criteria for a lot split application. And we've been consistent. We've never there's in instances where, for example, on Palm Hibiscus Island, we do an analysis of the area, and in those circumstances, we do find that you will find sometimes an average unit size existing over 50%. And that's because it was a period where the DRB could approve a unit size of up to 70%. So in that case, going to 50% is not incompatible with the neighborhood. But we've been consistent where we find an average unit size of 30%, recommending no more than 45%. And we're going to continue, with that recommendation.
Right, you almost do that as a matter of course, it seems like, because you did it last time.
Right.
Right, okay.
It's based on what they have.
Quick question?
Units.
Sure. Functionally, what's the difference between, let's call it 40, 45, and 50? In a minute,
Essentially, it's an additional bedroom. We are, striving for like four-member family with an office is kind of what we're targeting. So that 400 square feet we're asking, or it's technically 800, the 10% is 800, but a lot of it's being consumed by the circulation we need to be able to bring people up to the first floor. But that extra 400 is an adequate closet and a bedroom that we're asking for.
If I may, for less than a minute. So to answer the chair's question, back in the 50s, 60s, standard, the way folks lived was very different. Closets are huge. Closets have quadrupled in size, at least in those times. And that's why you're seeing all these new homes are at 50%. You used to be able to go to the DRB and request up to 70 with board approval. The city took that away, but now we're seeing 50 everywhere. And the only home in this neighborhood in the last, 30, 40 years was at 50%. The only difference here is that at one point, many years ago, an owner chose to unify the lots, develop one home, and keep the rest as open space. But that's the only difference between this and every other lot in the neighborhood. You all had a very similar application last month on South Hero Drive. Nick and I worked on that one too, and there was the same argument. We don't, staff did what they're supposed to do that analysis on the existing homes that are there. But the reality is, every other home here, as you said, will be redeveloped, in all likelihood, all at about 50%. This is just this will be the outlier. So we're asking that it be brought in line with everything else, and we think the homes certainly dictate that. Thank you.
To your point, I think we're going to be seeing, no one's going to go and not try to apply for 50% in all these new construction. So we got to figure out what we're comfortable and be somewhat consistent in what we've grown doing. And I just don't think there's some specific cases probably that we might consider differently. But, based on a staff recommendation, it's normal that they're trying to match what the neighborhood has. But all these neighborhoods that are being redeveloped, they're all going to ask for 50%. So it's for us to be consistent on how we decide on that stuff.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, what was the previous home size versus what's new? And also, what is the previous bedroom size versus the new bedroom size?
So when you say previous, do you mean?
What you had, yes.
We got approved last year?
Yes.
So they were at 40%, and
We need you on the mic.
So that's about 3,200 square feet, and then
Okay.
the new homes would be about 3,800, give or take, roughly.
And the bedroom sizes?
I think they're the same, just you took away, but you have one less bedroom, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And it's just,
The bedroom sizes were like single, not full size, but single beds. It was very small.
what it does is it makes these new homes, less quality than the other ones that will be redeveloped in the neighborhood. And again, as Michael said, somebody could say, you know what, this lot split doesn't make sense. I'll build a 50% home on the full lot. Then you'd have a 12,000 square foot home with no board, straight to permit as of right. We think these smaller, around 3,800 to 3,900 square foot homes make a lot more sense. And that's what we're asking for.
And if you look at the previous plans, which we don't have, but the closets in the bedrooms were like maybe 2 feet wide. There were several of them like that. The rooms could fit, like I said, a single bed in there. It was just not functional.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to get an idea visually. Thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this?
There is not.
Okay. No one here. I think I asked. Okay.
So I'd make a motion to approve it at the 50%. I think kind of going back to the conversation we had about trying to allow for housing where people can functionally live. This is all kind of a part of that conversation, whether it's in buildings or single family. So I'd make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Before we do one question, I'd be in favor of that as well. Could we limit, when they go in front of the DRB, can we add on something that says they can't ask for any further, any variance, basically, from the LDR?
I think we have that as a condition already, right?
All right,
No
I looked
variances.
in there.
We're fine
I
with that.
probably missed it.
I
Okay.
think that's usually standard in the draft
Right.
orders, right?
Right. I just want to be sure.
You don't need to
Again,
do a
they're-
roll call on the new app?
No, as long as we haven't heard any,
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Dissent? Okay. So all in favor?
Yeah.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
congratulations.
Thank you all.
Thank you all very
That
much.
was a weak approval. All right.
Do you guys want to take lunch now, or is lunch ready?
Is it here? I don't think it's here.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yes, it is. Is it? Huh? It's there?
I'd like
could
to
do-
make a motion that the air conditioning be increased to about 72 instead of
10 to
negative
12, let's see.
52.
Yeah,
Increase
let's
to
do one more.
70.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we're going to do one more before lunch. It's only 10 to 12. So the next one is Planning Board File 230641, 1333 Dade Boulevard, mixed-use building application for mechanical parking.
Alejandro, you want to read this? Yeah.
See, you don't have to sit through our lunch.
This application is requesting a conditional use approval for a mechanical parking. And staff is recommending approval with conditions, and it's on page 135 for your package.
And the application was reviewed and approved by the DRB on May 7th, and that included a variance for the driveway width. This is a relatively minor application that's before you, only for mechanical parking. This is for largely an office building with one residential unit, and we are recommending approval of the application. There were some recommendations since the initial application was submitted regarding removal of one parking spot to allow for maneuverability for valet. I think there's a total of 13 parking spaces. So we're recommending approval of the application as noted with a recommendation starting on page 148 of the board packages. I'll turn it over to Mr. Amster for the applicant's presentation.
Good morning, almost afternoon. Matt Amster with the law firm of Burkow, Riddell, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapanez. Offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard in Miami. Here today representing Crear Office LLC. That's the applicant and owner of this subject property, south side of Sunset Harbor. With me today, I likely on Zoom. In fact, I think before I go any further, Nick, you might want to swear in some of our team since they came in later, as well as there are some team members on Zoom.
Sure. So if the
Should be
presenters are on
Maximo
Zoom, I'd ask
Polanco.
they raise their hands on
Yeah.
Zoom so they can.
Maximo Polanco and Joe Goldberg are traffic engineers.
And then for anyone in the room, please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And this is Sebastian Velez, our architect, also at his office, Julio Fomina. As Michael mentioned, and we do have a presentation if you could call that up, we've already been to the DRB. This did not require us to go to the planning board first, even though that was how we intended to do so. But in processing everything, we did go to the DRB first. So the design has been approved with associated variances. This is it's a mixed-use building. It has ground level parking, one residential unit, which is on the second floor, and then 3 levels of office. It also has a rooftop, but that is express and private only for the residential use and not for the public. The ownership is actually a Brazilian entrepreneur, and he's looking to make this his family office here in Miami. So it's intended at the moment to be just one office, and the residential unit will be for his family's use. So that, again, is a specific defining characteristic, and that owner, as well as his corporate staff, have been working very closely with the architects to design something that will meet their needs. And we think that they come up with a great project. We did pass out a letter of support from Tremont Towing, which is kind of to our north and northwest. I have also spoken with, to the west of us is Beach Towing, and their attorney representative has seen the plans, shared them with the ownership, and they have no issue at all. And I don't know if they're here to speak, but we have spoken with representatives of the Sunset Harbor Neighborhood Association. They actually came in person to support our DRB application earlier this month. So here you can see our property. It's very narrow, it's only 50 feet wide, so it was a challenge to design this building and put it on the property. It only has access from the south, from Dade Boulevard. You can see here that even to the south of us, not just Dade Boulevard, but then you have the canal, and then you have, 17th Street as it crosses over. So we have 2 towing companies nearby and a public storage to our east. So we're kind of shoeboxed in, but I think that the architects have done a great job of addressing that existing condition. The building on the property, which is actually here in these older photos, is the orange roof. It's actually been demolished already, but here you can just see that context of what surrounds us. and here's to show that it is a vacant property. So in context again, here you can see our building, and we are not meeting the maximum setbacks at all. I mean, we are able to go 0 on the front and both sides, and I think 5 feet from the rear. The building is much narrower and slender than that in an ability to be compatible, as well as to, you know, have a good presence, even though it's very narrow. But I'm going to zoom in. You'll see that here is our actual ground level. This is where all the parking is. We are only required in Sunset Harbor, because there's an incentive for office, to have just 1 parking space for the residential unit. We are electing to provide 13 parking spaces, right? 1 for the unit and 12 for the office use. Now, just to be clear on that, they become required parking by doing so. We are able to be more efficient. We'll have full valet 24/7, which likely won't be needed for an office in the evenings, but that will be how they operate. There will be a gate, but that all has been managed by and reviewed through the city's transportation and also their peer reviewer. And if you heard, Michael Belushi did mention that we had some changes to address maneuverability, basically, and that was really why the application swapped in order. We were planning to come here first, but to address a transportation issue about maneuverability, we identified now, so it's not in your plans, but there's a condition, in fact, 2 conditions in the staff report draft order that we approve that basically do recognize that 1 space needs to be dedicated for maneuverability only. So there originally was 14 parking spaces, now there's 13. Luckily, because of the required nature, we're able to absorb that, but that will actually help the operation extensively. So here you can see in yellow, those are our actual parking lifts. Again, they're underneath the building. There's either enclosures or screens on the sides as required so that no impacts from lights and noise. Here you can see just in section, you know, the lifts are down there at that bottom level. Just for reference, right, the pink above is the residential, then 3 levels of office. And again, there is a roof deck, but that's for the residential use only. They are going to use a reputable company, Klaus Parking Systems. They have a lot of both established lifts in nearby areas as well as good close-by maintenance in case there's any issues, but they're very reliable. We did have to do a study to show that we're not getting any more intensity or density out of using lifts. So we showed at the bottom, we can actually provide 15 standard parking spaces. So that is a requirement to make sure that the lifts aren't, you know, giving us more office space, more density, which is not the case. Just again, in brief, these are a number of the maneuverability studies that were done, both again by our peer reviewers, by our staff, our traffic engineers, and then peer reviewed by the city. And basically this one here, over on the upper right, you can see that there's a T of two cars together making a T. The one at the bottom of that T is actually the space that's open for maneuverability. That's really the opportunity to, at worst case, right? This is basically the worst case when you have to take a car that's already up at the top of a back lift, that you can get it out and not have any issue. Again, our traffic engineers are on if you need it. We also had to vet with staff and the peer reviewer our loading and unloading. There's a loading space. There's also a trash, dumpster, and these are showing how vehicles can get in and out for both of those operations. Happens all on our property. And in the interest of time, I do have the architect here. He could say a few words about their design, and/or we can, because we do agree with all of staff's conditions. Did you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much. Sebastian Bellis with Urban Robot Associates. We are located here in Miami Beach on Lincoln Road, 420 Lincoln Road, and I'm also a resident, so projects like these are very important for us, and because we live and breathe Miami Beach. So just very briefly, it's a unique building, right? We really wanted to make something that worked with the current context, which is public storage and the tow yards. But also we understand that the city is changing, and so it was important for the building to take that into account. Also, this is a building that as you're coming from Venetian, you're going to have a view. And as you're coming down Dade, you're going to see the building as well. So it's a building that even though it's a very narrow lot, we wanted to approach it visually from all sides so that, you know, because you can see it, right? So it contributes to the urban fabric, hopefully. And it's a building that for us, it's important that it feels like it's part of Miami Beach, that it doesn't really work if, you know, if you put this building in Coral Gables or anywhere else. With that said, I think the driveway was very important for us to not drive by and see this very wide, 24-foot wide, you know, garage entrance, right? We encourage pedestrians, bicyclists, and you know, considering the private nature of this office, we really wanted to narrow it down and have a building that doesn't sit on a pedestal, but really comes down all the way to the ground. So that's why we have, and we asked for a variance and got approved, a narrow drive lane that goes into the parking. And worked with staff and our traffic engineers to make sure that all the buildings, you know, services worked and parking worked with that. So I'll show you just a couple more pictures here of the planters and what I like to call the Miami Vice shot. Our render got a little excited here, but we thought it was fun, so that's it.
But I hope you got to see that there's, you know, landscaping is actually incorporated into the building purposefully, not just on the ground level. With that, again, as I mentioned, we agree with all of staff's conditions and respectfully request your approval. We're here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone here to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand raised.
Close the public hearing. Questions?
I got a couple questions. First off, beautiful project, really nice, and it has sort of a similarity to the project that just finished being built west of you guys, so it kind of has a nice blending in the neighborhood. That being a main street, we already have lots of troubles with traffic in that area. When you talk about the gate to the building, you said there's a gate to access. Is there enough setback that cars can turn in and not be slowing down traffic on the boulevard?
Sure. We have, if you look at the plan, we actually, it's quite a bit. You drive all the way to the back and have parking, so there's space for several cars to be queuing one way or the other.
So the gate that you spoke about is further in?
Yes,
All right.
it's quite a further ways back. Yeah.
I'd just like to say that it's beautiful. I think it's something the neighborhood needs. It is certainly a lot better than looking at the towing. I did have a lot of the questions that Melissa had, but thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo my colleagues' thoughts. It's a really attractive looking building, and I think it will add a lot to the neighborhood. I did have two comments or questions. One comment is I really appreciate the setback on the front and adhering to the short frontage standards along Dade Boulevard. I think that will add a lot of presence and at least for that narrow section, will really elevate the pedestrian experience. My question is about the location of the bike rack. So it's all the way in the rear, which is concerning, and then it looks like it may have some sort of overhang, but minimal amount of overhang, which will then, you know, if it's a windy and rainy day, you know, subject those stored bicycles to the elements. So if there's any way in which it could be moved, or if it's been contemplated to be placed in a more convenient and more covered area, you know, I think that would be appreciated, especially as you mentioned that the parking was not initially required. You chose to make that required. So if there could be space there, I would highly encourage that. And then the last comment is, I really love these traffic studies that everyone provides. I actually went through basically the whole thing last night, and it's really interesting. For example, the level of service for all the intersections is mostly A's, which is like unheard of in any urban environment, and then some B's and C's, which even a C is a really well-functioning area. So, you know, there's not really, contrary to what people may say at times, there's not really a traffic issue in this area. And also the other data that it provides, you know, showing the high multimodal nature of the area, pedestrian counts and bicycles counts as well, in addition to the vehicles, I think it's really helpful in terms of like an urban planning perspective for this project and others in the area as well. So I want to thank you for that. But the bicycle rack part, I think, is something that really should be looked at, and to the extent that you can do something there would be appreciated. Thank you. And I'm very supportive otherwise. Because we're really only looking at the mechanical parking, correct?
That's correct, yeah. You can make, you can suggest, like you're saying, if you want to have them make modifications for the bicycle parking to make it more accessible and secure and secure from the elements, you can include that as a condition.
I would encourage that and ask my colleagues as well to encourage that.
We can certainly explore that. I know space is a premium, but we can look to locate it in the garage. Just for clarity, remember there's no retail, there's no real, except for people visiting the office. Those are racks basically for the office employees, so we felt it would be, again, a safety and security issue for their bikes while they're there throughout the day. But also it's, again, space is a premium. But I think we can certainly work with staff to find a place to make sure that it's protected from the elements.
I have a quick question. Do you have anything pre-leased?
Well, no, so as I mentioned, the owner is a Brazilian.
I know,
the owner
pre-leased for
company-
office, any office applicants?
Yeah, no, they're planning to use it for their own
Oh,
family.
your own
It's a
offices. I
family-
beg your pardon.
It's the family
Okay.
office, yeah, so
Thank you.
it's not intended to be leased out.
Okay, thank you.
Question for staff. What is the benefit that projects get by classifying as mixed use versus office, meaning putting that one residential unit on top?
You get the FAR bonus.
Got it. Thank you. And
Yeah.
wait, what is the FAR bonus?
25%.
Got it.
Scott?
Yeah, considering the limitations on the site, it's nicely designed, how you kind of fit everything in there. But that's the one question I had. You know, way in the back, you have the FPL vault and also the trash room. Have you reached out, I assume, to FPL and asked them if that's going to be an issue? Because I know they normally like to have sort of unfettered access to where their vaults are.
Yes, that's always a very good question. On the city side, we don't want to see the vault. Well, it's not a vault, it's a pad mount transformer. So we want to have it inside. So we do have the clearance. These are the preliminary requirements our engineer gave us, and we had a brief conversation with FPL about the sizing of it and the vertical clearance. So everything is designed per their requirements. We haven't gone back and forth. They usually like to look at it a little bit further into the process, but at least we have a good framework.
One other question on the trash. Have you reached out to any companies, I guess the two operating in the city, because, they use pretty large trucks, and depending on what they use, sometimes they have a fork in the front. I don't know if that's going to work where you are, or they have the other trucks, the back loaders, and they kind of have the totes they use for that, or the small dumpsters. The concern is, that's a long way to go back for the trash, either for the truck and to maneuver in there, because I don't think a truck's going to turn around. The alternative is they wheel out, whether it's a tote or a dumpster, to the street, which is going to be costly if they're going to do that every day and take time. The concern I have is, we don't want to see whatever the dumpster is ending up sort of on the days it comes out on the sidewalk waiting for the garbage truck to come. So that's my concern, how that's going to be handled. And I wonder if you did any investigation, talking to different trash companies to see how that's going to work.
I believe that at least, preliminary discussion has happened. I mean, it's all designed to happen on the property. Basically, because of the lifts, we have a higher first floor, so it's over 14 feet clearance, which is significant and accommodates trash loading operations. It is valet operated, so the truck will get assistance from, people on site to help them maneuver into the property. It's basically a straight shot, in and out. And that was all vetted through the transportation review and the peer reviewer. So it's possible that our traffic engineer, Maximo, who's on Zoom, may have had provide more color about reaching out to the trash collection you know,
Yeah,
contractors.
I'm sure, it can be worked out. The thing is on a consistent basis, because eventually somebody says, whether it's the valet people, the trash company, well, this is
So
pain to do this all the time,
If
and
we-
then they're going to
if-
make it easy for
If we could
themselves.
call up the plan, if I may, I think that this will help. It's a very narrow driveway. It's a one-way, basically in and out, as managed with both valet and a gate. There's no opportunity really to have any dumpsters sit anywhere that wouldn't otherwise impede
I'm thinking on the
our
sidewalk.
operation.
That's my concern. So, but
I
it's something
can
we need
assure
to.
you that a family business is not going to want their trash container just out in the open in front of their business. So
Okay, yeah, and I thought about it, and I don't think you're going to have, it's not like you're going to have every day a full dumpster.
Right,
I
it's-
assume, so
there-
it's not going to be a lot, but it's just a concern. It's something that, I guess whenever this project is finished and starts operating, it's something we'll keep an eye on.
I'll pass it
Anything
on to
else?
the owner.
Someone want to move it? Go ahead.
Approving the conditions for the mixed-use office building for the mechanic parking garage.
And I'll second.
Second by Ms. Latona, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Thanks for the presentation. Good luck.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take 15 minutes. The rest are all code amendments, so.
How long do you want to take for lunch break?
I mean, they're code amendments, so 15, 20 minutes?
Like 20 minutes?
Yeah. Start at 12:30?
We'll come back shortly after 12:30.
Just call me Mary.
Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. If you are here to present on an item today and have a presentation, please go to the podium. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Proceed with new comprehensive plan and code amendments. The next item is item 12 on the agenda. Planning Board File 240673, mandatory progress reports for certain CUPs.
And this report begins on page 155 of the board packages. This ordinance would only apply to conditional use permits that were issued for neighborhood impact establishments. It would do two things. It would first require a mandatory progress report within 6 months of the issuance of a CUP. And typically right now, the board requires a progress report, usually within 60 or 90 days from the issuance of a CU for the establishment. The biggest thing this does is require a yearly progress report for all new CUPs for neighborhood impact establishments, regardless of whether or not any violations have been issued. And the purpose of this is to make sure that businesses are abiding by the conditions of the CUP by having them come to the board on a yearly basis for a progress report. Now, we noted in our report, in the future, this could result in a backlog or an abundance of progress reports at the planning board. And that's something that the board and staff is going to have to find a way to manage in the coming years. But we are recommending that the planning board transmit this to the city commission with a favorable recommendation.
Wait, so I have a question. So it requires a mandatory progress report at 6 months.
Within 6 months. So typically,
I got
the
that,
board
but
does
then
less than-
every year thereafter, regardless of any issues?
Correct.
What's the purpose for that?
To make sure that they're complying with the conditions of the CUP. And this is,
Wouldn't the lack of any problems evidence that?
yes, yeah, that's true. And the board still can issue a cure letter and have them come before the board for a progress report if any violations are issued. Like I said, I think the purpose is to be proactively on top of neighborhood impact establishments. So these will be, like, say, a restaurant that's over 300 occupancy or a neighborhood impact
I
establishment.
get that,
has-
but this is in the absence of any issues?
Correct.
No complaints, nothing, they still have to come before us?
That's
I don't
the-
agree with that.
I
but-
don't agree.
But why-
There's
but why would
nothing to
staff be in
review.
favor?
The what?
My question is,
That's-
why would staff?
That's our
recommend this?
recommendation is in favor, but I understand the board's concern of,
I'm looking at you, I'm like, oh my.
No, I'm saying
This
that's-
is gonna ruin
It
your
looks like a
life.
very hesitant
I
recommendation.
don't disagree.
Right, okay.
I think it
I
wastes
hear
a lot
you.
of people's time. The business
But let me ask you, the first one I agree with. So the 6 month, what's our current typical requirement?
30 to 60 days, or 60 to 90 days.
Oh, so this would delay that to 6 months?
No, it'd be
In
within,
addition.
within 6 months. So it just would require a progress report.
So if
within
we
6
mandate
months.
one at 60 days,
Or
they
nine-
wouldn't need to do it again at 6 months?
No, it's just saying that.
It's once within the first 6 months.
Right, it requires that the planning board cannot issue a CUP for an IE and then not also require a progress report within 6 months.
Right,
of
I
a
get that,
CUP.
but what's the current rule that we follow?
There's no current rule.
Okay.
It's not codified.
All right,
We've
so.
only done it if there was some
So
type
I'm
of-
okay with the first one, I'm not with the second, but, and again, you're finished with your
Yeah,
presentation?
yeah.
Is there anyone to speak here? Is there anyone on Zoom?
There's no one on Zoom.
Okay, all right, go, I'll just,
Yeah, I too think perhaps the one within 6 months, yeah, it doesn't make sense to have somebody come back every year if there's no violation. But definitely one, and I know we normally say 60 or 90 days, but maybe give the operation of 6 months to operate. I think by then, any bugs, things will come to light and we'll be able to discuss it when they come in front of us at their first progress report. And then, go from there if no
yeah,
violations.
and that was gonna be my question. When you have a standard of within 6 months, then for each CUP, is the board gonna determine when that should be?
Yes, correct.
All right, so depending on the nature, we could say we want it in 1 month or 2 months. Okay.
Correct,
So it
yep.
gives us the latitude to then determine when it will be for each
Exactly,
CUP?
exactly.
Great, okay.
Can you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's good. Go ahead.
Can you clarify, why do you think that's good to, in itself? My question is, what are we reviewing as a progress report if there's no complaints? Because if there's a complaint, then they're here with.
You mean even on the first one?
Right, I mean, on the first
Well,
one, like, I'm just, what are we reviewing? If there's no complaints, if there's a complaint, then they're gonna be coming in front
So
of us
typically, the
anyways.
board, one of the reasons for a progress report is to make sure that the operation is happening as intended. A lot of times, there may be issues with valet, and there's a certain number of valet runners that are anticipated based on a traffic study. Oftentimes, the board may need to modify, or the applicant may need to modify the number of valet attendants. Or maybe there's complaints regarding the hours of operation or noise complaints after a certain time. But I think right now, even if the board, if the board said, we're not in favor of both of these recommendations, you still typically require a progress report within 60 days. So if the board says, transmit this with a negative recommendation, the standard of having a progress report is still gonna be in place.
Okay, so we still have something for them to make some changes.
And so if we agree with the first and not the second, does that mean we have to refer this negatively and then do a second motion?
No, I think you can recommend in favor, but strike the second part.
Okay, normally we have to do it in the second motion. Okay, we can do that in one motion?
I think you can do it in one it all
Okay.
relates to the draft that you have.
Do you know what the impetus for this was? Because I don't remember this coming before land use, but do you know why they wanted mandatory and yearly? Because,
Like I said, I think it was just to stay on top, and sort of catch anything up front.
okay.
Right.
Michael lost
But I
the
don't know
bet.
what you're catching if there's no issues. But anyway, all right, I think we're all, Matthew, any?
My only question is, so I don't think we've had a progress report yet since the three of us have joined the board in terms of a new neighborhood impact establishment. So what does that entail? Is there like a form that they have to go down and review in front of us, or how does that work?
No, it's basically, they come before the board, we take a look and see, have there been any violations? They typically will update their traffic study and indicate, so if, for example, I'll give you an example. We had a restaurant that was approved, and then at the corner of where Ocean Drive connects over to Collins Avenue, and their traffic study indicated they would need like 49 valet runners to manage the establishment. Well, once they started operating, they said that was ridiculous. We don't have that many people come by car, and actually they could handle it in 7. So at that time, the board was able to make a minor modification to the CUP, without having to require them to maintain 49 valet runners on site all the time during their peak hours. So it's to make fine-tune adjustments like that with the progress report.
And then what about the TDM strategies that are usually outlined in their application and then referenced in the conditional use permit? Are those?
Yeah, the board could ask the applicant to provide an update on how many employees are using, let's say, rideshare or bus passes, or, it could be whatever the board wants an update on in terms of traffic, operational issues. It's sort of like an application when it's coming before you, we're anticipating things are going to happen a certain way. It's not until after they start operation where we can confirm that everything is happening as intended or anticipated.
And actually, this gives us more latitude to choose when within that 6 months, because I think 30 days, 6 is too early.
Yeah.
I agree.
And some applications may have tenants that the building is not fully occupied, so
Right.
you really can't evaluate a project that's only 50% complete. And
Right.
sometimes the board will institute a requirement, say that once 80% of the tenants are occupied, then you come to the board for a progress report.
All right.
All right.
These also give, the progress reports give residents, surrounding neighborhoods, the opportunity to come in and talk to us if there's something happening that nobody anticipated and they're seeing, maybe it's not a violation, but they're seeing, then they can bring that to our attention at that time as well.
Okay.
All right, we're all set to move it?
ahead.
Right?
Sure.
So I believe so. Your recommendation is to,
Well, she's going to move it
All
now.
right, so I think we're going to move the first one, right? So recommend.
Approval, but
approve the
removing the
recommend-
second requirement.
The
Got
second requirement, so, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All, but none opposed. Okay.
thank you.
All
Happy
right.
birthday, Michael.
Next one, planning board file 240674, architect and landscape architect land use board categories.
And this is an ordinance.
Page
Staff report
163.
begins on page 163 of the board packages. So right now, we have four land use boards: the DRB, Design Review Board, Historic Preservation Board, Board of Adjustment, and of course, the Planning Board. The Planning Board right now has some of the most lenient requirements in terms of the landscape architect position, where at the Planning Board, it says one architect is required, or landscape architect registered in Florida, but also gives the option for a member of a faculty of School of Architecture or professional practicing in the field of architecture or urban design as part of the makeup of the board. The DRB requires one architect and one landscape architect registered in the state of Florida. The Historic Preservation Board requires one architect registered in the state of Florida, and as well as a Board of Adjustment, one architect registered in the state of Florida. So this ordinance would expand upon those categories to allow not just an architect or landscape architect that's registered, but also professional practicing in the field of architecture, architectural design, or practicing in the field of landscape architecture. So it expands upon the pool of people that are maybe available to serve in the architect or landscape architect position.
Because it's typically one that's difficult to
Because it
fill,
has been a
right?
difficult position to fill, because, for example, if you have an architect that's sitting on the board, they cannot have any projects that come before that board. So it does limit the pool of qualified architects to serve on the boards.
So this broadens the pool.
It broadens the pool, and it's still subject to the city commission and then evaluate what those qualifications are.
Motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Before, we should take, see if there's any public comment, and there's nobody in chambers.
All right, anyone on
and-
Zoom?
And nobody on Zoom.
Okay, close the public hearing.
Okay, motion to approve?
I'll move it. Approve it.
Okay.
Second?
I'll second it,
Oh.
sure.
Well, I
All in
think-
favor?
No, I think Elizabeth seconded.
Oh,
Shield
Oh.
okay.
motion.
Got it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 6-0. Moving right
Okay.
along.
Next one, Planning Board file 240675, live local application fees.
And this staff report begins on page 175 of the board packages. So just some background before this. On March 24th of last year, the Florida legislature adopted Senate Bill 102, known commonly as the Live Local Act, which provides development incentives and overrides certain local zoning regulations and developments that provide at least 40% workforce housing units in commercial, industrial, and mixed-use districts. Now, on January 31st of this year, the City Commission adopted an ordinance in order to dictate how the city administratively reviews and handles these applications. And now we're starting to see these applications come in. So that ordinance was adopted establishing those procedures. However, there's no fee schedule or fees that are part of that ordinance. What this ordinance does is establish a fee schedule that's consistent with the land use board application fees. And these fees are noted on page 178 of the board packages. Now, these types of live local projects are not going to be totally workforce housing. They're largely going to have a market rate apartment component as well as,
It's
commercial.
40%, right?
40% minimum in terms of the residential units, but that's, for example, you could have, if you have a building with 100 units, you could have a developer with 40 400 square foot workforce housing units and 60 4,000 square foot
Right.
market rate apartments in combination with commercial. So
Oh,
this,
so it's not, wait, that's interesting. It's not 40% of the
square
size.
footage, no, it's not.
It's 40% of the units?
Yes, that's an important
Wow,
clarification.
that
here.
is, that's, okay. I
So,
didn't know that.
it's a little loophole. So this would not assess any fees to the workforce housing component. It would only, the fees would only apply to the market rate and commercial portions of the project, including a square foot fee that would not apply to the workforce housing component. This would allow, because staff is still reviewing these projects, so it allows the city to do some cost recovery for these types of applications. So we are recommending that the planning board transmit this to the city commission with a favorable recommendation.
Are these fees consistent or are they higher
No,
than?
they're consistent. They're not any higher.
To my question.
Okay.
So is that, if I may, Chair, annually CPI is currently much larger than the normal, what would be considered in real estate 3%. So would that be equal to or less than, or how, I mean, is this just the standard? Where did these numbers come from?
This is what's already in the code in terms of how we adjust all of our other fees. So it's consistent with the annual CPI adjustment.
So this does not put a live local application at a disadvantage to any standard application?
No, it doesn't require any, like, if someone to come in with a project that was workforce housing, there's no fees. This only applies to fees for the non-workforce housing component.
All right. Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand raised.
Nobody in here, I assume?
Motion to approve?
No, okay,
Motion to approve?
okay. Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye. All opposed? None, okay. Moving right along, Planning Board file 240677, elimination of the .5 FAR bonus for hotels.
And this report begins on page 187 of the board packages. We provided a map on page 190 of the packages that outline the CD2 districts in North Beach and South Beach. And this ordinance would apply to the CD2 districts along Alton Road, Normandy Drive, 71st Street, and Collins Avenue in North Beach. It would not apply to the CD2 districts on Collins Avenue, south of 6th Street, or Washington Avenue. Now, the Land Use and Sustainability Committee is going to review a separate recommendation in those areas and provide a, probably a recommendation to the City Commission. They'll come to the Planning Board in the future if they choose to recommend a reduction in the, or a elimination of the bonus for those areas. So right now, the CD2 districts allow an FAR increase if you provide a hotel or residential component of your project. The standard FAR for CD2 is 1.5. However, if you provide residential or hotel, you get the FAR bump to 2.0. This would eliminate the FAR bump for projects that are hotel and not residential within the areas of Alton Road, Normandy Drive, 71st Street, and Collins Avenue, in order to incentivize more residential units. It still allows the FAR bump, but only if you have at least 25% residential and not hotel
Right,
units.
so it only incentivizes the residential component?
Correct.
And then wasn't there also some type of analysis being done towards, I think it was along 41st Street? It was some type of FAR bonus for hotels along 41st Street?
I'm not aware of that, and that's CD3,
Right.
which is a different, that's a different zoning.
Was there any type of
No, not a bonus for
discussion
that. Not that I'm aware of, no.
This is just CD2?
Correct.
Okay. Anyone
And I
else?
see nobody in chambers, and there's nobody online with their hand raised for public comment.
Where's the table that's referenced in the draft ordinance?
I mean, the,
Okay, hang on, maybe I'm misreading this. So, anything south? Or I guess I'm trying to understand where, I think you might have just gone over it, but, for example, the project that we just approved the mechanical parking for, was that CD2?
that was CD2.
And is that, that's along Dade
That's,
Boulevard?
that's a resident, that includes a residential, so that they would be able to avail themselves of it.
But they also could have done hotel, correct, as well?
Yes.
And we're recommending whether or not to repeal that.
Right, to eliminate the FAR bonus for hotels.
Incentivize more residential.
Okay, so it's everything that's outlined in this kind of, like light red on the map, except for.
No, so the areas that are the map includes the, sort of the salmon color area, that's CD2. And that's the areas within North Beach and in South Beach. It doesn't specify which of the areas are part of the ordinance.
And that's what I'm asking, so where does it specify in the ordinance of the areas?
So it applies to everything except for Collins Avenue and Washington Avenue.
Okay. Citywide, CD2?
Right.
Okay.
So, I'm obviously in support of this, but the question is, similar to what the office project before us, they have an office building, they throw kind of one residential unit in, they qualify for a
But
bonus.
yeah, but that's, so, but 25% of that total FAR, so for example, in that project you looked at earlier, 25% of the building was that one residential unit.
So my point is that how do we incentivize a higher allocation towards residential? I don't know if that could be accomplished through this. I don't think they're connected, but just going forward.
Okay, that's the purpose of, for example, if you take away that residential unit, that project has an FAR of 1.5.
Right.
So they're only getting the additional FAR for the portion that's totally residential.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, instead of, in other words, they get a bonus for having one unit. Let's say they get a bonus for having 2 units.
Well, I think it's an unusual case to see a unit that large. I think the idea is here, this is like a family office project. And
These
that's
people
why-
that are creating the family offices, they're
Right,
not
but
really
the only
helping.
additional FAR has to be residential.
Correct. So I'm saying, instead of having them create one huge unit, which is obviously only going to be geared towards
Right.
the owner of that
Make 3 or
building.
4, right.
They could have done 3 or 4 or something.
Which,
maybe
which,
more
have-
which is what we've seen with 3 of the projects in Sunset Harbor. That
Right.
big building, the same thing, it was one apartment only and the other.
You would
one
have to
from the,
institute a maximum
Correct.
unit size.
Got it. But that wouldn't be tied to this. That would be something that I guess,
How do we put an incentive that helps in making sure that there's more than just
and
one unit
that's what I'm
to,
trying
yeah,
to
benefit?
accomplish.
Do you think they could make this part of a recommendation? I think we'd have to amend the ordinance though, so I don't think that could be done without going back and,
I guess what he's saying is it's kind of defeating the purpose, right? We're trying to put this incentive where you got the offices and the living spaces and people are playing with it to get the FAR with no.
but I think it is a rare circumstance. I mean, we're seeing this one-off case, maybe a couple we've seen on Alton Road, do the same thing. But it's very rare to have a project that's, one unit that's residential.
I think everything that we've seen thus far around the Alton Road, Sunset Harbor area has pretty much been that. You've had the office on the lower floors, and you have this one huge
Well,
unit.
but just to be clear, that's unrelated to this.
Yes, it is. yeah.
Totally unrelated.
All right,
I'm
let's-
just saying,
let's-
does it go
I hear what you're
together
saying,
or
right.
not?
I mean, I
don't know
think
the
maybe
answer to
if you want to recommend in favor of this and then
And separately.
have a separate
Okay.
That one
amendment,
should be separate, yeah.
have the city
Okay.
commission
Yeah,
look at
because the spirit of
maximum-
this is to encourage more residential, so.
Right.
And not
Right.
get bonus
Yeah,
for
all right, so
hotels.
let's vote
I
on,
just
let's,
have one more
motion-
question.
oh,
Sorry,
sorry,
I have
go
just
ahead.
one question. When was this put into place, that the bonus for the hotels? Is that in recent years?
No, it's been for decades, I think.
It's been like that for a
Yeah,
long time,
yeah.
so there was not like a recent.
This is
thing that
not
was-
recent.
back when they needed hotels.
Okay, and then we're not.
Well, see, no, I remember back in 2006, 2007, we were worried about losing hotels.
Right.
Because everybody was buying these properties and converting them into residential condos, because that was what the market was dictating. And then the economy crashed and nobody was doing residential units anymore. So,
I have a quick question. So going back to the office building we just approved, if they were to put they wanted to put one hotel unit in that building, then they would not be able to go to 2.0.
well, the hotel component would have to be part of not be part of that 25%.
Correct.
And that's right, just to clarify.
Okay, just the way I'm reading this, though, it says the attached draft ordinance removes the .5 FAR bonus for a site containing a hotel unit, which seems to read that if there's any hotel unit on a site, then regardless of what else is in the
No,
building, that they
we
couldn't.
would treat that as commercial. So if they were to have, say, their total FAR was 2, if they were to have at least 25% residential, they could have 25% hotel and 50% commercial. But it still would require at least that 25%, which is the bonus, be residential. And then to clarify, the project that we saw earlier, because that's north of 25th Street, that would not apply. They still could take advantage of the bonus north of 20th Street. This ordinance applies to, let's see,
I was
Well, the one
just
we just did
assuming
was
that if that was
1333.
in one of the districts that we're looking at. That was my question, assuming it was.
actually looking at the actual text of the ordinance, it only exempts properties on Washington Avenue and Collins Avenue south of 63rd Street. So that property on Dade Boulevard in the Sunset Harbor neighborhood would be removed from being able to have the bonus for that property.
Just for hotel.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, just in terms of interpretation, if they were to have 50% hotel, 25% residential, and 25% commercial, that still meets the intent of having at least that bonus being 25% residential.
Okay.
All right. Wanna move this
Motion,
one?
Yeah.
motion to approve
All right, so second
with a
that.
favorable recommendation.
Sorry, who made the motion?
Yashiel and Melissa seconded.
Okay.
All in favor? All opposed?
And did you want to make a second recommendation regarding?
Yeah, that,
So I'd
so,
like to make a second, I guess, motion to have the commission consider how to establish, I guess, maximum unit sizes in order to qualify for the residential use FAR bonus.
right, it sounded a little weird, but.
Got it. Yeah, I understand, yeah.
To think about
Right, we
minimizing
can
the maximum
basically state the same
size.
case where you can
Right.
take advantage of this by providing
Right.
one unit that's
Right.
6,000 square feet.
Right. The way he said it, which it is correct, but it sounds like to maximize, but it's to minimize the maximum size, actually.
And I think we've got something coming up
Right.
for
Right.
raising the
Counselor.
hotel unit size,
Correct.
correct?
Is there a second on that motion?
A question before we maybe get a second. Are there other examples in the city of, in the LDRs of maximum unit sizes? I know average and minimum is always contemplated, but what about maximum?
No.
And so how would that work? Because what if you have like a small lot, how do you determine what the maximum?
This would only apply to properties that are taking advantage of the residential bonus in CD2 districts. But it could be a certain number or a percentage of the
Right.
the space.
But from your planning perspective, is this is like a viable recommendation to look at maximum unit sizes?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
We're something coming up.
Okay, I'll second his motion then.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, last but not least, Planning Board File 240676, Architectural Tour Requirements for Land Use Board Members.
We're going on a tour.
And this report begins on page
I think it's from appointment, though.
197 of the board packages. And what this ordinance would do is institute a requirement that within 60 days of appointment, new appointees shall make best efforts to complete an architectural tour with MDPL. It also, ordinance allows an alternative in case, something happens to MDPL in the future, and it's not tied to one corporation. And the reason for this is that, understanding the historic pattern architecture of the city is important in the review of any type of land use board application. So having that background and knowledge, which is provided through a walking tour of MDPL, gives some history and background on the architecture of the city, ranging from Art Deco, Med Revival architectural styles, and Miami modern architectural styles. And this would be prospective, so would apply to future board members.
I have a question. Is the commission also required to take those tours? I'd like to actually, I'd like to, seriously, because people don't really come up to North Beach very often, and I think it would be important for them to see the MIMO architecture there. I've taken this tour, I don't even know how many times, just with friends, just to have them kind of become acquainted with our architecture. But I'd love to see the commission do that
As
as well.
part of your transmittal, you could recommend that the city commission also
That they take the tours,
take
yeah.
the tours.
I like that.
So I have a linguistic question. So if you look at E, it says each voting member of the board shall complete. And then the last sentence says it should be done within 60 days of initial appointment, right? So that wouldn't apply to the current board.
Correct, right?
That's right, it would not apply to current members.
You worried?
No, you
I'm
could
just
take-
saying, it's from the initial appointment.
That's right.
So it doesn't apply to reappointments, it's initial appointment.
But also, and it also says shall use reasonable best efforts. So I think your clarification, even for prospective appointees, is if MDPL is not offering or there are scheduling or health issues and they can't do it.
Exactly. There's not like an automatic removal of a board member.
Right. But obviously, if someone's initially appointed and they do it, and then they're reappointed, they have to do it again. So it's
Right,
from
right.
initial appointment. Okay. Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand raised?
Are you, either of you here for this item? No, okay.
Motion to approve?
Unless anyone has any questions or comments? Okay.
Who made the motion?
Yashiel?
Okay.
I'll second it with the further amendment later.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right. That was an efficient meeting.
Oh, and then, no, so the recommendation is to recommend in favor with
Yes.
the idea that the city commissioners also take advantage of the tour. We can do that as a separate motion?
Yeah, I think it's a separate motion.
Okay, so the separate motion made by Elizabeth. Does anyone want to
I'll
second that?
second that.
Okay.
All in
Anyone
favor?
opposed to having the commissioners do this as well? No? Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Singer.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next meeting is April 25th.
Thank God for the Good Time Hotel item, otherwise we'd be here another 2 hours.
I'm sorry,
We're going backwards.
June 25th.
I remember,
June
everybody,
25th.
we're
Thanks,
not,
everyone.
you guys, I know, you were not here in August. I think you all know that, right? June, okay. Anybody else?
No, I'm here, I'm scheduled around both.
Anyone else missing any meetings this summer? Okay. All right, so you got that? Scott's
Got it,
away
yes.
from June?
Scott will be absent for June.
Right. All right, guys, thanks. That was a very efficient, productive meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm only as good as my.